Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.
This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Monday, May the 6th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Fonz King is sitting in the producer's chair this morning. You'll be speaking with Fonz when you pick up the phone. Give us a shout, get in the queue, and on the air. The topic is entirely up to you. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, it's toll-free long distance 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. Well, as you heard from Brian Medora in the newscast, stark contrast from last Monday to this Monday. Even yesterday, a really cool 3 degrees in town. Today, hitting a high of 13, so quite a pleasant day out there today. Congratulations to the members of the coaching staff and the supporters of Canada at the World Under-18s. I mean, yesterday was an absolutely fantastic hockey game. So Canada roars back to beat the Americans 6-4, led by a young fella named Gavin McKenna. McKenna is 16 years old. Hat-trick plus an assist yesterday in the game, so a bit of a coming-out party for that young fella. He really looks terrific. So congratulations to the lads. And included in the coaching staff for Team Canada was Travis Crickard, who's from St. John's. So that's pretty cool. He's making his way through the high levels of junior hockey. He's the head coach in St. John of the Sea Dogs. So congratulations to Travis Crickard from town, one of the assistant coaches. And just talked about coming-out parties. In the most recent World Juniors, there was said party for Macklin Celebrini. Celebrini is going to be part of Canada's World Senior team at the upcoming World Championships beginning on the 10th of May in Czechia. I don't know how we all of a sudden arrived at Czechia. But anyway, joining Celebrini will be Dawson Mercer from Bay Roberts. He got the nod to play for Canada in the World Championships, so good luck and congratulations to him. Maybe it's because I have a bit of a bias and a soft spot for Alex Nowak. I have to say I'm surprised he wasn't selected. I mean, given the big ice, given his speed, you thought he'd be one of the players selected to play for his country. Now, when he came back from his injury, had a super solid second half of the season. So no Nowak, but yes, Mercer, go get him. And at the World Para Hockey Championships out in Calgary, Canada off to a pretty good start, beat Italy and beat Japan. Against Italy, beat them 10-0 on Sunday. The Italians only got 2 shots on net. But Liam Hickey had 2 goals, 4 assists. He was the player of the game. So continued good luck to Team Canada. Of course, they play Czechia tomorrow, who are the most recent bronze medal winners. But this always boils down to the Americans. So in the last World Championships, the Americans got the best of us again, beating a 6-1 in the most recent gold medal championship. But there you go. And I have to say, I feel bad for the poor old Leafs fans. Maybe they're numb to it. I don't know. 1 playoff round win in the last decade. So the thought is, will there be the required shakeup? Whether that be the Shanahan, and of course the coach is gone, the so-called core 4, which they must be getting tired of thinking about and talking about and watching underperform in the playoffs. But anyway, out they go. And there will be a new Stanley Cup champion this year. Dallas beat the defending champions Las Vegas yesterday to advance to what will be an absolute humdinger of a series against the Colorado Avalanche coming up. All right, there you go. A quick notable one in this date in sports. It was 7 years ago today that Roger Bannister, a 25-year-old British medical student, became the first man to run a mile in under 4 minutes. It was significant because nobody thought it could be done. And so he set his mind to and made a public statement that he is going to beat the 4-minute mark, and he went ahead and did it. So, proving it was possible, the record only lasted for 46 days, and then someone else broke it. So 4 men had completed that accomplishment by the end of that year in 1954. To this date, and I think this number is pretty accurate, I tried to look around, the 4-minute barrier has been broken by 1,755 athletes. Pretty cool. At this moment, the record for women is still at 4:07.64. There's a Kenyan lady who owns that particular record. She set that in Monaco last July. So Bannister on this date breaks the 4-minute barrier in the mile. And they weren't trying to set land speed records yesterday down around Kitty Bitty Lake, but it was the 3rd annual Flora's Walk. It's a fundraiser and awareness campaign for perinatal mental health. So this is done in conjunction with the the provincial chapter of the Canadian Perinatal Mental Health Collaborative. So about 50 people made their way down. So this is a very real issue for women, and apparently it can also impact the partner, the man in the relationship. So there's only one perinatal psychiatrist in the province, just one, and apparently she receives some 30 to 35 referrals per month. So this is a major league concern. Of course it is. We didn't experience it in our household, but I have a dear friend of mine whose wife struggled mightily after giving birth. So I want to say good morning, congratulations to all the folks who were part of Flora's Walk yesterday. And of course, it coincides with the Maternal Mental Health Awareness Week, and it's Mental Health Awareness Week period. So we've heard all kinds of conversations, whether it be debates on the floor of the House of Assembly, personal stories being shared on this program, which is important, because sharing your story might make it easier for someone else to acknowledge their needs, be able to speak openly with their friends and family, and get the help they need. We're always worried about access, and there's a difference in access to mental health supports living in rural versus urban. And of course, continued requirements for expanding long-term access and the importance of continuity of care. So if you're interested in telling your personal story here, or would like to speak to any of the different facets of mental health awareness, mental illness, mental well-being, we're more than happy to take that on today. The folks over at the Canadian Mental Health Association talk about the uptake on its mental health and suicide prevention training program. So apparently a lot of people have taken part. So it's offered by LifeWise and Richard's Legacy Foundation for survivors of suicide, and our good friend Tina Davies, who's part of Richard's Legacy. So here's some numbers for context. Some 630 people have previously attended the 62 training courses offered to date. So we know that prevention is the key. Prevention can only happen when open and frank and honest conversations are had. So, as reminded by many people who know much more about it than I do, if you have someone in your social sphere or in your family that you're worried about, it's important to open that conversation, not to pry, not to be overbearing, but to have the conversation. And when you engage in that conversation, it's also important to use the right words. Not just how you doing, right? And then the answer is, I'm fine. And you leave it at that. Or you say, are you sure? It's not that easy to really get through to somebody, even if you have a hard time thinking that you don't want to really say the word suicide. Unless you do, you'll never really have a better understanding about where your friend or your loved one is. So throughout this Mental Health Awareness Week, let's tell the stories. Let's talk about the concerns. Let's talk about access. Because the more we do, the better it will be for whether it be removing stigma or reducing stigma, and most importantly, to keep it on the front burner for politicians. Now, yes, there's been monies flowed in the most recent federal budget, and yes, there's been some monies in support flowing from the provincial government, but we're still nowhere near plugging all the gaping holes that currently exist. So throughout the course of this week and throughout the course of every week, it's really important. We've got to make sure that politicians understand exactly what's going on. Sometimes it's easy to characterize our elected officials and or other leaders in the community as being out of touch with reality. Maybe, just maybe, some people in the elected ranks are also struggling quietly, but certainly to know that certain things have happened in the recent past, like shelving wellness together, it just doesn't make any sense. And then follow it up with more monies and acknowledging the concerns that people have right across the country. But let's talk about it today if you are so inclined. And on that front, we hear the stories and the growing number of young people in the K-12 system who are struggling with mental wellness, and whether it be anxiety and or depression, and what are some of the root causes. It's time that the Education Accord crowd, the two people that have been tapped to lead the Education Accord, and the minister responsible, and the folks at the NLTA, and various individual teachers and administrators, we're having a better understanding of some of the contributing factors to our children's mental well-being and or mental health and or mental illness. Let's be honest with them in the classroom. And we know a lot of it can stem from social media and the digital pylon, which has caused Canadian children and adults to really withdraw. And you can recognize the signs, but let's develop some really important proactive curriculum. We talk about a body safety. Let's talk about our brain's safety. And if we understand what's going on, and I think we have a good grasp on what it is, let's be honest with the children in the school as a captive audience and talk about it. Okay, so cruise ship season has begun. Yesterday was the first visit of a cruise ship into St. John's Harbour. There's some 40 of these events scheduled to happen over the course of the season, bringing some 54,000 passengers to the city. And I'm not exactly sure what the numbers look like in Cornerbrook, but they had a really strong season last year. All right. You would imagine there's a direct relationship with tourism season, which is upon us, and the decision made by the provincial government to empty out what people call Tent City. You know, they'll talk about concerns being voiced by the neighbourhood, concerns being voiced by the school close by, but you know full well that it also has a direct relationship with more and more people being out and about, using the park that is Bannerman Park, tourists and otherwise, and this was always going to happen. Still plenty of confusion about actually what's being offered, and we can talk about that if you're so inclined. But here's where it gets a little bit rich. So we're told they put up the signs and they will point back to an issue with the propane tank, saying that, you know, indicates just how unsafe the conditions are. But if you're going to tell us now that it's illegal, it's not illegal because of the tourism season. If it was always illegal, why weren't we talking about it like that? And, you know, moving towards whatever the solutions are. And yes, not every case is the same, and some people don't want to help, some do. The shelters are not the answer, obviously. So if it was illegal, and that's the way the government is going to lean on this decision, well, then it was always illegal. So I don't pretend to have all the solutions, but I know full well that there's been seemingly little done in the short term. I don't think government can be held to account to be able to build homes overnight. And the lofty goals that have been put forward by the Construction Association, and there's so many different things we can consider in the world of permanent housing and different strategies that work better in different jurisdictions. I've talked about housing first, the strategy that's held in Helsinki, Finland, and we can get into that a little bit more, but if you want to talk about all of those related matters, we can do it. Oh, and sticking with the schools for a second, I meant to go down this road. You know, parents of deaf students in the province are calling out that the fact that their children are being left behind. You know, it's certainly one thing in St. John's where we don't really do a very good job necessarily, but there's only 2 sign language immersion schools in the province. Both of them are here in the city. So obviously for children who are living outside of the city and unable to attend East Point or St. Paul's Junior High, their children are basically sitting in silence and learning nothing. You know, the numbers of professionals that are able to deliver American Sign Language is woefully low. Systemic changes have not been achieved. So here are some of the numbers for context. There's 18 itinerant teachers, 20 teaching and learning assistants, and 4 teachers for deaf and hard of hearing students in the province. 4. So some of the comments made that, you know, if they're unable to hire, then some student assistants will be trained along the way. Trained along the way? How does that work? So we've heard the story many, many times, but the specifics regarding Carter or Churchill. So when there was a decision made by the Human Rights Commission, you would think that would have set a precedent that government would have to act on immediately. There was a financial decision associated with this one, but for Carter, who sat in school learning nothing because no one was able to communicate with him, so here he is now in one of these sign language immersion classrooms, being forced to learn grade 7 curriculum, when in fact he probably only has a grasp on grade 1 curriculum. Not because I say so, but because his parents say so. So yes, you cannot flip a switch and build homes overnight, and you can't flip a switch and hire ASL teachers overnight, but this is simply not good enough. So if we're going to talk about class size and class composition, and whether it be students on the spectrum or ADHD and or deaf, or whatever behavioral issue might be in play, how we currently offer, deliver, and measure the curriculum and the success of is nowhere near the standards we need to achieve. So the story regarding, especially those families outside of the city, if you want to bring your concerns, your family circumstances to the show this morning, you're absolutely more than welcome to do it. How are we doing on the telephone there, Fons? Couple of quick notes. So we know that 2 more women have come forward and have filed civil suits against an individual member of the RNC, and I believe named the RNC proper. So there's 4 suits in play now. There's some 10 women have come forward, including 1 member of the RNC itself. Talk about the fact that this one now retired officer, Sergeant Robert Baldwin, was one of the people involved as a uniformed officer on duty, driving people home, and the stories that are held in this news clip are terrible, and they're heinous and evil. He, of course, has denied all the allegations. No criminal charges have been laid in these particular cases. They've chosen to go down the civil route because they say they don't have faith in the system, which is a mouthful to say the very least. So it's obviously a big topic, and it is traumatizing, despite what some people have uttered in the recent past. So maybe we'll get Lynn Moore on the program to talk about some of those decisions to keep it as a civil trial versus a criminal trial. But 2 more women have come forward. The number of cases now up to 4, 10 women included. Okay, just very briefly, someone sent me an email about a story last week where the Royal Newfoundland Constabulary was looking to the public for information regarding a sexual assault in the area of Pitts Memorial Drive. Okay, and the public should be helping. And they're talking about whether or not you have some video from Babel's Row, particularly in the neighborhood or the region of Pitts Memorial Drive, overpass itself. But the only description offered is that the fellow who allegedly raped a young woman was on a bike. So not so sure that's very helpful. 'Tis the season where people are going to break out their bicycles. So young, old, tall, short, color of his skin, any general description that can help us out here. Wearing a hoodie, a red hat, something or other, as opposed to someone who might be riding a bike, because it's a pretty popular issue to be able to out riding your bike. Okay, a couple of quickies before we get to you, and there's a lot to talk about. So for the Loblaws boycott, the Reddit page is some 73,000 people strong, and they've got a bunch of demands for Loblaws to sign on to the Grocers Code of Conduct. And recently, they have been hesitant to do so. Like the Costco's, IGA's, others have said, yes, they'll sign on. Now, there's a dispute mechanism inside there that Galen Weston tells us that would just make food prices go higher. Not to say I believe a word that Mr. Weston has to say. So they're also talking about an immediate 15% decrease in the price of food. I don't know how many people are supporting the boycott or actively engaged in the boycott or whether or not it's going to work, but people are fed up. All that said, when I went for a walk on Saturday, I intentionally went down towards Dominion in my neighborhood, which was down by Kitty Bitty, and the parking lot was full. So I really don't know how successful it is in getting people not only to sign on, but to follow through with this month-long boycott of Loblaws properties, which includes, of course, Shoppers Drug Mart, No Frills, Dominion itself. So, yes, the price of groceries and the pain with walking through a grocery store and looking at the sticker shock at every single aisle. But if you want to take on the Loblaws boycott as an organizer and or a participant, we can do it. All right, so I'm going to save a bit more time because I kind of ran out of it this morning. But the issue regarding the first report from Justice Marie-Josée Ogg regarding foreign interference in the 19 and 21 elections, it dropped on Friday. So basically, in summary, and I will dig into this a little further maybe tomorrow morning, is that her assertion is that it did not change the outcome. And we're going to have to look further at the who knew what wins and the flow of information and the understanding of the information when it was received by the intended person. But she says, and I think this is a big part of this, is that whether it be China, India, Pakistan, their primary goal wasn't necessarily to be able to influence the outcome in one riding or another, but it was to erode trust of Canadians in democratic institutions like our elections. And you know what? It's worked. Because I hear from plenty of people who have no faith, which is a terrible thing and a terrible place to arrive at where we don't have faith in the elections. We don't use voting machines. Votes are on paper. They're counted by hand. Scrutineers from every individual candidate are allowed in the room to watch the counting of and the tally of the votes. But we'll get into a little further because there's also a clear warning that whatever we experience in 19 and 21 is only going to get worse in the future. And the Chinese in particular were actively working towards getting involved and meddling in the election. And of course, the whole story regarding Kenny Chu or Han Dong and how they bust people to the nomination votes and what have you. But we can dig into it a little further. And if you read the report over the weekend, of which I read the bulk of, please feel free to come forward. I don't know if Canadians are paying much attention to this at this moment in time, even though I think we should, because it impacts all of us, regardless of your political ideology, your political leanings, what individual candidate or party you intend to vote for in the upcoming whenever it is election. But that's a big one. All right, we're on Twitter. We're at VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Our email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's get the week off to a flying start that requires your participation. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's begin on line number 1, the top of the board. Good morning, Gladys. You're on the air.
Oh, good morning, Paddy.
Good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Well, Paddy, I'm a first-time caller.
Okay.
Not because I'm young. I'm an old lady, 85 years old. And I'm from the beautiful little community of Cavendish, Trinity Bay.
All right.
I've never been on open line before, but I suppose it's never too late to start. I'm calling this morning to talk about our wonderful government. We have a doctor here stationed in Winterton. He's not only our doctor, he's our friend. He's been with us for 55 years. And he took it up on himself to befriend some of the older patients who found it very difficult to leave their homes. And one Saturday a month, he visited us faithfully, did our vitals, and had a little personal chat that made us feel that we mattered. Now, thanks to our government, he's not allowed to do that anymore. We got to get out, no matter how difficult it is, or get an ambulance and go to Emerge and wait in a lineup for hours to see a doctor who don't know anything about us. Now, if that's what you call a caring government.
Gladys, just...
Now, I got news. Okay?
I was just going to say, out of curiosity, what exactly changed to disallow this doctor from doing what he was doing, I guess, with the home visits and or, going to a common area at a long-term care home or what have you? So what changed?
No, he didn't go to long care homes or anything like that.
No, but I do know a doctor who
he
does
made
that.
first calls.
So this is telephone calls?
Okay. No. Came to visit personally.
Okay, fair enough.
So he's not allowed to do that anymore. So he always did our vitals. I mean, there wasn't a lot
Gladys,
of chat with us
okay.
that made us feel that at least we mattered. Now, thanks to our government, that's not allowed anymore. So I don't see what the big deal was. He was doing his best to help people. So I'm kind of disgusted with our government. Now, I got news for this government. We have enough seniors now to make or break a government, and I want you to know that we may be old, but we're not stupid. My father always said Newfoundland would never be anything because we didn't have enough honest people to run a government. I was young, and I used to laugh at him then, but unfortunately, he was right. And I want to thank you, Paddy, for your time.
I'm glad you called this morning, Gladys, as a first-timer for sure. What I'm not entirely sure of is exactly what rule was changed to disallow the doctor from doing the house calls. Because, that's a kind of lost art in the first place. It used to be really popular. Most doctors were doing exactly that, especially when we talk about family doctors. So what I'm going to have to do, just so I'm not as confused as I am right at this moment, is exactly what changed and who told him he's not allowed to do it. It seems like a quite strange thing to tell a doctor of his own volition, of his own time. I don't know if he was billing MCP, for instance, for these visits, but to not be able to...
Well, probably. I don't know either.
I don't know.
He probably was,
Okay.
But just dig into it and get to the bottom of it.
I absolutely will.
But it was the government who stopped him. I do know that. He didn't stop of his own accord.
Well,
So,
number one, would you like to say the doctor's name or would you like me to put you on hold and you can tell Fonz privately?
well, I do it privately because I don't know how he would feel about me going public.
That's right. That's why I offered you that opportunity to speak to Fonz off air.
Okay.
So I'll do that.
Yes.
I'll connect with the doctor directly and then try to figure out exactly what changed or what happened for him to be unable to do the home call, because the house calls have been very beneficial, especially when people are getting up in age and it becomes a bit of a chore to get out to the doctor or to go to an emergency room. So that's what I'll do. I'm going to put you on hold, Gladys. You're going to speak with Fonz. Give him the name and I will follow up.
Okay, thank you very much, Paddy.
I appreciate your time. You're going to be on hold right now, Gladys. Here we go. Oh, sorry. Can you get that name for me, Fonz, please? All right, let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Adam. You're on the air.
Morning, Paddy.
Welcome back to the show.
Thanks. Thanks for taking the call. I just wanted to talk a little more about the whole Crown Lands mess that we have here in this province. Some of this is going to be a bit repetitive if anyone's been listening to my previous calls, but, you know, I keep talking and nothing ever changes. So
Well, we got
I
to
feel
keep
like I
painting the
need to
picture.
keep talking.
Yeah, repetition's okay because this is an issue that government has been unable to wrap their minds around. What we're talking about is Crown land. And it might not be an issue of concern to you today, but it might in the future. Because as we have found out many, many times, it's not just one family on Cattle Island. It's not just Adam Furlong on the Bloomfield Farms. There are people who are sitting on a piece of Crown land unbeknownst to them. And at some point in the future, when you go to sell, you're going to find out the hard way. So we got to be able to paint a clear picture so people understand what's happening, and hopefully government will be able to listen and do something about it. And it's fine for Pleaman Forsey to put a private member's resolution on the floor of the House of Assembly, which had some debate and some conversation, but nothing changed. So let's go ahead and Adam, where do you want to start?
Yeah, so I'll mention something about that special members resolution that Pleaman Forsey tabled in the House of Assembly. When they were debating this special members resolution, the sitting government was adamant about rewording a part of that document. And it was the part that noted that the enforcement of this legislation has caused undue hardship and stress on the residents of the province. They were really unhappy with the terminology that they have caused undue hardship. Well, this is an issue that wasn't caused by the people of this province, and it's been ignored by every sitting government for the last 75 years. And yet the government is putting all of the burden and stress and financial responsibility in the laps of the people who are not responsible for it. So if that's not undue hardship, what would you call it? I'd like to just talk about, since I've started talking about this, been in the news and been on this show many times, I've kind of become, I guess, some sort of an unofficial poster child for this Crown Lands issue, and I've had a lot of complete strangers reach out to me with their stories of similar things that they've had to deal with. So, I mean, some of the issues that I've been made aware of in this province, I mean, somebody called me from Lab West saying that they were trying to start like basically like a community garden inside of a greenhouse in Lab West to try to help with the insane cost of food in that area of the province and that area of the country. And they were trying to deal with Crown Lands for 6 months and literally did not receive one response, nothing. They received an automatic reply when they tried to contact somebody in Crown Lands, never heard a word back from anybody after. There's somebody else right up the road from me who, a young couple who, when they got married, she tried to build a house on her grandparents' land. Her grandfather's passed away, but her grandmother said, okay, we have this land, you can have it if you're going to build a house and stay living here in the community close by. So they cleared the land. In the process of trying to build the house, this Crown land issue came up, and now the land is just down there prepped for a foundation with alders and weeds growing up through, and their entire life is put on hold. Somebody else that I know with young kids has been looking for a property around this area for years to try to build a house or buy a house or something to start their life, another young family, and they have looked at least 5 separate properties with houses or just land to build a house, and all 5 of them have come back with these Crown land title issues. So their entire life is on hold, waiting on Crown lands to sort out this mess. I would like to, I'm thinking about doing an ATIPA request or something like that to try to get to the bottom of this. But I mean, how much taxpayers' money has been used to fight taxpayers in court in this province? Between these lands issues and things like you mentioned earlier with the Churchill family, I mean, the amount of money and time and resources that the government is putting into fighting these nonsensical issues it's unacceptable. And I don't understand how anybody who's in a decision-making position in the government thinks that this is okay or acceptable. I mean, I had one of the people in Crown Land that I spoke to when I was trying to get across the point of how this problem is not okay. He told me a story about how he's aware of somebody who was moving here. They weren't from here. They were from Ontario. They were moving here and wanted to purchase a piece of land to build a house and move their family here. And he told me this story to try to support their position on this whole Crown Lands issue about how somebody here in Newfoundland advertised a piece of land for sale. This guy from Ontario got in contact with him and purchased a piece of land. And when he moved here and started to try to build his house, it all came out then that the Newfoundland guy, never owned the property to begin with, and he basically just scammed the guy from Ontario out of the land. But that's terrible, and it's wrong, and it's probably 1% of the land's issues in this province is things like that. And the thing that really got me about that is that the guy who legitimately did something wrong and scammed somebody on a land sale got off scot-free. That was just chalked up to buyer beware. The guy from Ontario should have known better. He should have looked into it more. So the guy who legitimately did something wrong got all this money from a guy from Ontario and walked away. But all the people who were trying to go about it the right way with land that they legitimately purchased and feel like they own and have lived on for decades, these people are being raked through the court system and facing all these financial penalties because of trying to do the right thing.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be helpful to understand what the rationale is inside the majority government as to why they either A, don't understand the concerns or the issue, or B, don't care. Because there are some changes that have been proposed by you. Greg French has been a very helpful guest on this program. He's, of course, a lawyer that has many of these files on his desk out in Clarenville right at this very moment. So if there are solutions there, or if the government simply wants to say, no, we want our pound of flesh, we want to get paid. You know, if their mandate is to do what's in the collective best interest of the public, that's not it. I mean, people didn't try to steal something from the Crown. That's not what happened at all in 99% of these issues or instances. So, you know, if they're just going to try to get paid in court and the time and the legal bills and the frustration to try to quiet a title, then there's something patently upside down about that. You know, again, if people were purposefully trying to hoodwink the government on these land-related matters, then fair ball. Make it difficult for anyone to get a win. But that's not what's happening. And so consequently, people's lives are being there's upheaval in people's lives. And I mean, that might sound hyperbolic, but I'm going to stick with it because that's exactly what had happened. Look no further than the poster child or the poster family for this concern being the Diamonds from Catalina. It took forever and a day, and eventually they had to settle. I think they paid the government $10,000 for a plot of land that they lived on for over 4 decades. So it's madness, really, truly is.
Yeah, and I mean, that's just $10,000 that they had to spend to get the land. We don't know what their legal fee, what their bill was at the end of the day for everything else. So, I mean, it's considerably more than that, I'm sure. I'd like to just, for anyone who hasn't heard, you know, probably my first 1 or 2 calls that I made about this, I'd like to just talk a little more about what happened with me and my business and my family with all this issue. Because I had a career in the oil and gas industry for 10 years, and I left that and left. We lived in CBS. We left there, sold our house, moved out here to the Bonavista Peninsula to try to pursue the business that I had started in agriculture. And at the time when this happened in 2020, we had sold our house and moved out here, and it was literally the day before the closing of the purchase of our new house and property. The Crown stepped in and contacted the seller's lawyer and said, no, you can't sell it. So me, my wife, who was 3 months pregnant at the time, and our 1-year-old son were essentially made homeless by this legislation. We had already sold our house in town. We couldn't buy the house that we were moving to, and we basically lived in a camper for 2 weeks while we tried to figure out an arrangement where we could rent this house and this property while the sellers tried to sort out this mess with Crown Lands. So we did that, and I can tell you that with me and my pregnant wife and a 1-year-old and our entire plan just being ripped out from under us and no idea what the future was going to hold and no idea if we were ever going to be able to buy this house and property, and you know, looking around at other houses and properties while we were renting this place to trying to figure out what the future was going to hold for us. And then it was almost a year to the day later, we were able to buy the house, but not the other portion of land that the Crown took away from the previous owners, who lived here for 48 years, by the way. So when all that happened, I had spent a considerable, I won't say a dollar amount because that's too personal for public airways, but I have spent a considerable amount of money to try to make this business in agriculture work for my family and our future. And all of that has been in turmoil because of this legislation and the government's enforcement of it. I put in applications for agricultural grants to try to help grow the business that the government is always talking about, that they want to grow agriculture in the province. And every time, year after year, the grant applications that I put in are denied, and then they'll approve me for like a $1,000 piece of equipment or something when I put in an application for a $12,000 greenhouse. And they'll deny the greenhouse, but they'll give me $1,000. And I feel like that's just like, here's $1,000 to go away and stop talking about it and leave us alone. So, I mean, every single thing that I've done since 2020 has been made 10 times more difficult than it should be for nothing else than the government. I mean, I had Snowmageddon, that whole thing happened when we still lived in town, and I had restaurants and farmers markets shut down, which are two of the three market streams that we have. And we pivoted to try to focus on retail locations and home deliveries. And then a couple of months later, the pandemic started. And again, farmers markets and restaurants were closed, and then they were open at 50%, and then they were closed again, and then somebody in the kitchen staff would get COVID, and they'd be shut down for a while and it was all just like pivot after pivot after pivot, trying to figure out how to make everything work. And all of that was very difficult, but it all pales in comparison to the amount of difficulty that has been placed on me and my business by government. It's the most difficult thing that I have had to do with my business is trying to deal with the hurdles and roadblocks that have been put in front of me by the government. And it's unacceptable.
Obviously it is. Adam, I appreciate making time for this one again. You know, I know we need to get ministers responsible, whether it be current and or historically, to help us understand exactly the mindset of the government on this front. Because I can't understand it whatsoever. I do my level best to try to dig into details, try to look at historical context. And we're talking about back to 1976, which makes it somewhat tricky on this political motivation front. But we'll keep it going, and I really appreciate your time again this morning, Adam. Hope you're well.
Thanks, Paddy.
Take good care. Bye-bye.
Appreciate the time. You
Anytime.
too. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
bye.
All right, let's go ahead and take a break. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Good morning, Christine. You're on the air.
Good morning, Patty. How are you today?
I'm very well. Thank you for asking. How about you?
I'm doing great. I'm on a mission today to get as many votes as we can in the competition, The Next Great Save. And it's been on NTV. Joanne Rose, the committee chair, was on, and the Port-au-Port Church, Our Lady of Mercy in Port-au-Port West, is a finalist in this contest, and the winner will win $50,000 towards restoration repairs to a site that they applied to. So today is the last day. We have about 11 and a half hours left to vote. And right now we are in the lead, but we want to secure that lead so that in 12 hours we are the winners of this contest.
Yeah, we'll find out tomorrow. It's been ongoing since the 18th of April, and you're right, today is the deadline. We've had a couple of conversations about Our Lady of Mercy right here on this program as well, and hopefully that's been helpful. So, I mean, the pictures of the 100-plus-year-old building, they're beautiful. And, of course, it could use a little TLC, especially on the outside. Apparently inside, the acoustics and the architecture is absolutely glorious. The outside could use a little flick of paint and what have you. So let's hope and fingers crossed that you do indeed win the $50,000. Go a long way. I mean, it's a great competition just in and of the fact that, you know, working towards preserving some of our heritage and the heritage sites and heritage buildings, it's sort of lost on most people. And, you know, you don't know what you got until it's gone. I'm like, even in this city,
Exactly.
you know, even in this city, I don't think we've done very well with the preservation of heritage sites and buildings. You know, we've kind of moved towards a vinyl siding jungle versus what should have been preserved over the years. So fingers crossed for you and your folks out there.
It is. The architecture and the workmanship in this building is absolutely spectacular. And the outside has suffered quite a bit of damage with, the weather conditions, especially out on the Port Peninsula. And it is kind of open a bit to the ocean. So we're hoping today that anyone, all government offices, anyone in this province and worldwide, because I know you have an audience worldwide, if you have an email, you just go into the Next Great Save, you vote for Our Lady of Mercy Church, the Painted Lady, they have it called, and then we'll secure our first place, hopefully, at the end of the day. So we really appreciate it. And so many people down through the years, I think of Danny McCann and Mr. Snow and the Lawlers, they've worked tirelessly to keep it so that it didn't completely go, because there was a lot of water damage and, down through the years, especially the last 20 years, it hasn't been a functioning Catholic church. They still held special events, but now it is classed as a heritage site, and I believe it is no longer owned by the Catholic Church. So it's very important to our community. I thank anyone who has helped down through the years to, keep this church from being completely unable to be restored. And I thank the committee today, who is still there trying to raise funds and trying to get the work done so that this church can be around for another 100 years.
Yeah, it's operated by the National Trust for Canada. The title sponsor is Ecclesiastical Insurance. So let's see if we can put you over the top here today, because today is the deadline, folks. So don't just ponder it today. You have to act on it today. I appreciate the time, Christine. I look forward to hearing the results and who the winner is, and hopefully that's Our Lady of Mercy Church in your community. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank the Next Great Save.
Absolutely. Thanks for your time. Good luck.
Bye-bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, there you go. It's actually a pretty eclectic mix of the 10. I think it's in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12, there's an old fire station, a well in Ontario. There's a couple of theaters. There is a grain elevator out in Alberta. And like I said, a couple of churches, Old St. Thomas Church in Moose Factory, Ontario, Our Lady of Mercy Heritage Church in this province, and up and down the line. So there's a lighthouse in Marconi Station in Prince Edward Island, or on Prince Edward Island, pardon me. All right, let's take a break. Please do. Just go Google Next Great Save, and you'll go right to that site, which is nationaltrustcanada.ca. Let's take a break. When we come back, John's here to talk about the carbon tax. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. John, you're on the air.
Yes, good morning, Patty.
Good morning to you.
Just wondering about this carbon tax. Someone told me that it's coming out again on the 15th of May. Would that be correct?
No, sir. It was scheduled to come out on the 15th of April.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
it did come out.
It did. The first quarterly rebate, the Canada Carbon Rebate, came out on the 15th of April. There's a couple of things that people should be aware of, though. Number one, given the decision to carve out the carbon tax on home heating fuels, the quarterly payments are less this year than they were last year. So they went from $164 to $149 for an individual. And, of course, there's a similar reduction for families of 4, what have you. If people did not get their carbon tax rebate on the 15th of April, and it goes to everybody, it doesn't matter how much money you make, and it's not taxable, some of the things that people float around, is you had to have filed your taxes by the 15th of March to get your rebate on the 15th of April. So if you didn't, whatever date you did file your taxes, you're told that some 6 to 8 weeks after the date you filed is when you will get the rebate. So if you didn't get it in April, doesn't mean you're not going to get it. You're still going to get the 4 payments, but you might have to wait just based on when you file your taxes.
So how often is this supposed to come out?
4 times a year.
4 times a year,
Yeah.
same as the GST, is it?
That's right. Yeah, so it says if the 15th falls on a Saturday or Sunday or a holiday, then the payment will be made on the last business day before the 15th. So you get it. It's scheduled to come out on the 15th of April, July, October, and January.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you cleared up a lot of stuff for me. Thank you very much, Patty.
Happy to do it. I appreciate the time.
You too.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
John. Bye-bye. And, of course, to extend the carbon tax conversation, look, plenty of Canadians don't like it, right? If Canadians are asked, would you like to not pay one tax or another, then you can imagine that the majority will say, yeah, I prefer less tax. Stands to reason. Then there's going to be all kinds of conversation, especially when the campaign is really officially on, even though it kind of feels like it's on already. And we can talk about that if you like. But leading up to April 1st, where it went from approximately 14 cents per litre to approximately 17 cents per litre, if we're talking about gasoline for starters, and a bigger change when it comes to diesel. In the 3 months prior to that 3 cent increase, the price of gasoline went up 30 cents, right? So fair ball. When tax is a word associated with anything, it's something that we should talk about 100%. And, even parties across the board have said that they think government should do something about climate change. What? Not entirely sure. Because something as vague as education or technology is not really an answer. And, the last federal election, 2/3 of Canadian voters voted for a party with carbon tax as part of their platform. So I know people hate it. I mean, most people that contact me, they absolutely detest the carbon tax. But the question can and should be, if not that, what? And if that's not fair, I don't know why it wouldn't be fair. But anyway, you want to take it on? That or anything else, we can do it after Bill on one. Bill, you're on the air.
Hey, good morning, Patty.
Morning to you.
Patty, I'm calling from the West Coast, Pasadena.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Saturday night past, we had a little get-together at our seniors club. And unfortunately, during that get-together, we had a lady took seriously ill. We had to call for an ambulance, of course, which comes from Corner Brook. The problem we're having is, it takes anywhere from half an hour to an hour. This one took a little over that half an hour, about 40 minutes. But we have an emergency crew here at our fire department. And from what I understand, if we call 911, first it goes to the RNC in Corner Brook. Then the RNC, they determine if it's a fire, they contact our fire department. If it's a medical emergency, they contact Western Health, which is supposed to contact our fire department here as well as send an ambulance. That is not being done. Now, this lady's in ICU now, very, very ill. But the problem is, if Western Health contacts our emergency crew here with the fire department, they could save a life while we're waiting for an ambulance. And it's not being done. And we had a similar incident back in February when we had a little do during Winter Carnival where a lady also took seriously ill, and we had to wait an hour or more for an ambulance to get there from Corner Brook. And this is not acceptable. I think our town should be looking into this as well, but this lady is in ICU now, and she's not only a member but a dear friend, and things could have worked out, different. I don't know, but that's the problem we're having here in Pasadena, Patty.
Yeah, not dissimilar than an awful lot of places in the province. So fair enough, and that's obviously a major problem. We had a conversation last week with the father of a young man who needed an air ambulance transfer and all the confusion surrounding it. And some of that was weather-related, some of that was crew-related. But the amount of time people are waiting, I mean, even right here in the capital city, Bill, it's less than ideal. I mean, the numbers of times people are calling and there's not an ambulance available is staggering. I mean, the health authorities even gone so far as to say that the people in the industry are not allowed to call it a red alert anymore. That's the basic term that's measuring these types of issues right across the country. So we know it's bad. It's probably much worse for you than it would be for me living in St. John's, but we are the furthest thing from ideal here too. So I get your concern. On top of that, Bill, I mean, here we go. The 1st of June, we're going to have a so-called new ambulance system in place. And how it's going to work, we really don't even know. And I mean, it's the 6th of May. So in 3 weeks plus, we're going to have a whole new system, we're told, and we don't even know what it is.
I know, it's crazy, and it's not acceptable, Patty. It's just not acceptable. We have many, many seniors in Pasadena, and when you get up in age like we are, anything can happen at any time. And for us not to have access to our medical team, our emergency team here in Pasadena through the fire department is not acceptable.
No, it isn't. And I'll add to it. I know that's not what you called about, but in so many smaller communities as well, even paramedics themselves say, I really wish the municipalities would get into the business of putting numbers on houses. as opposed to I live in the greenhouse down past Nanny's place. Those types of things, which is adding confusion to the paramedics themselves. So there's a lot to this. So ultimately, with the poor lady who took sick, what happened? Even though there was a lot of time before an ambulance showed up, is she okay?
No, she's still in ICU.
She's still in ICU. Oh my God.
Anyway, speaking of that number thing, when we had that other incident in February, an ambulance was called. We gave them the number on our seniors club and the street. They ended up going to a wrong place. They ended up across the street on another street away from our club. And that, of course, took extra time as well.
Well, I'm glad I brought up that point, because imagine being a paramedic new to one area and you're given some vague directions about how to get to one place, whether it be a home or a club or anything other facility or building in one community or another. I mean, every second counts. So for people to be driving around and trying to find, it's a problem, you know. No, not everybody recognizes, well, I live in the house with the white picket fence 5 doors down from this particular corner. That's not necessarily the best kind of directions.
That's true. Yes, very true. Anyway, Patty, I just thought I'd touch on that because it's very important to us as seniors here in Pasadena, and things got to change because a life can be lost because of this stuff.
Absolutely right. And I'm glad you brought it up. I'm sorry to hear about your friend, and fingers crossed she recovers in full.
Yeah, I hope so too. Thanks, Patty.
Thank you, Bill. All the best.
Yeah, bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, let's get to the newscast. When we come back, Fred, you're next to talk about the Waterford Hospital. I don't know if that's the current one or the replacement being built over in the Health Sciences Complex. And then after after Fred, plenty of time for you. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Fred, you're on the air.
Good morning, Patty.
Hi, Fred.
Hi, how are you?
Fred?
Hello?
Yes, go right ahead.
Patty, I'm calling about the Waterford Hospital in St. John's. I was back there on Saturday by the ANC in Sydenham yesterday.
What happened?
My nerves gave out, Patty.
I'm sorry, say that again?
My nerves
Okay.
gave out.
And so how did the RNC get involved, Fred?
The 811 called.
So they came to do a wellness check, and they decided that you should be at the Waterford.
Yes. And I went in and they kept me in the lodge overnight and sent me home yesterday around 9:30.
Did they do anything to help you while you were there? What happened?
No, they did not.
And how are you today? Do you feel like you should still be there, or what can we do for you, Fred?
I don't know, Patty. I should be in the I want to be in the water, but I should be in there.
Do you think you should go back right now yourself?
Yes.
Okay, are you going to do that?
Yes, I will, yes.
Okay. So if that's how you feel, you should absolutely go back down and tell them exactly what's going on. And I'm not going to pry too deep into what's going on with your nerves or your mental state. But if you feel you need that help, please do go back.
All right.
Do that, Fred, and be very clear with them that, you know, you find yourself in this crisis here, and let me know if you have any luck, and if not, we'll see if we can figure something else out.
All right.
Good luck, Fred. Take good care. You
Okay.
head straight down there now.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Good luck, sir. All right. And so, you know, I mean, and there was a story like I read in the news this morning about the lack of access in certain parts of the province, notably on the north coast of Labrador. And the story is quite sad. It ends up with a 14-year-old girl who had repeatedly tried to commit or die by suicide, and she was in the Janeway, and the family decided to take her off life support, and she's gone. Then there was the stories of she's been here before. She's been in the Janeway before, and never really, as per the family, never really got the diagnosis or the treatment plan that the young girl required, and this was the end result. So we have also heard people that present at the Waterford, whether they be in a state of crisis, whether or not they say that they have suicidal ideations, and yet, in far too many cases, the story goes they were seen and then they were released. And sometimes it's ended up with drastic and tragic circumstances. So again, when we're building a new mental health and addictions facility in the health sciences complex, that's just new, modern, more comfortable surroundings. Will it change how things unfold when people present themselves? Whether it be with the RNC in tow and or simply themselves or brought in by their family? Because if we don't change the process, then we're simply just surrounded by nicer furniture, right? Nicer settings. Let's continue here. Let's go to line number 2. Jason, you're on the air.
Hey, Patty, how's your day going?
So far, so good. Thanks. How about you?
Not bad. Bit of vitamin D back for us, hey.
Feels good.
Yes, sir. Calling today because me and my mom were in the house collapse in Churchill Park back on the 17th.
Right. I remember the story. What's going on today?
Well, I've lost count. I think it's like 18 or 19 days that we've been living in the cars. Me, her, and 3 pets. I reached out to emergency homeless line back last week, and they said there's nothing available given your situation and circumstances. They are providing a U-Haul truck and some storage up to U-Haul for our belongings that didn't get destroyed, but no house. We didn't have insurance. Which actually I've gotten a GoFundMe that I sent to your Facebook message link. It hasn't really taken off, gotten that much traction. We're hurting here. I personally, in my car, after this so many days, my ankles and feet have swelled so bad it's not even funny. They barely fit in my sneakers now. I got a call back from Fred Hutton's office. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday last week to reaffirm that there was nothing available for me or Mom. But I said to them, well, we've been sleeping in our cars since the 17th. And the response was, well, that's what home insurance is for. So.
Well, that's not very helpful. I mean, it's an after the fact, number one. So, Jason, you say you sent me something? I don't recall seeing it.
It's on the. I'm not sure now. It's the VOCM news link. It's the little white icon when you see the profile pic on Facebook Messenger. It's the link, the URL to my GoFundMe.
Okay, so that wouldn't have come to me. That's why I don't recall seeing it. Someone in the newsroom who's managing that account. I have a private Facebook account, just Paddy Daly. I mean, if you send me something there, I'll try to surf it around for you.
Oh, that'd be awesome, man. Yeah, if you don't mind, that'd be great.
Not a problem. So you can just find me on Facebook, and my messages are open, or you can just put it on my page, whatever you see fit. And when I see it, I'll try to deal with it and try to surf it around on your behalf.
Awesome, man. Thank you. So I wasn't sure whether I was going to, talk to you first or reach out to Minister Hutton's office again to try and extend one more olive branch. But I'm kind of looking at, like, the CBC came out with an article there a couple of days ago about a fella who, him and his family were caught in a fire. And it's similar circumstance, not identical, obviously, but they didn't have insurance, he and his wife and a number of kids. But Newfoundland Housing managed to get him a house from day one. You know what I mean? And I got my mom here. She's on long-term disability, dealing with fallout from COVID. I'm tough, rough and tumble fella. I can put up with a lot. But, I mean, I worry about Mom. And to be told that there's just nothing. I mean, not, given the situation you're in, can you pitch in to help and we can get you into a place? But, anything. It was just, we don't have anything for you. So it's basically we've been stuck living in the cars now since the 17th. And it's really got to stop. We're looking at more. We're not getting out of the cars yet. I mean, apartments that are pet friendly, I know a lot of people would probably be thinking, well, what's your priority? But I mean, they're family. I don't know what else to do. I'm trying to get a hold of his office, but they seem to be super, super busy. So I'm going to keep trying. Maybe they're listening here today. you know.
Have you reached out to, say, like Red Cross, Salvation Army? Sometimes they have some emergency options available for shelter.
So we started by calling Red Cross because my grandfather was always he's ex-RNC when he was alive. He was RNC. His father before him was, and he always say the first people that were on the site when there was a disaster was Salvation Army, and I couldn't believe they told us they didn't have anything. They put us on to the Red Cross, and the Red Cross offered to put Mom up for a couple of days in the Alt Hotel, and so if anybody's ever, the Alt Hotel is pet friendly in a tragedy situation, in a disaster situation, which is wicked. But nothing for over the long term until Mom can get herself set up in another house or an apartment or whatever the case may be, whatever she can figure out, right? There is a 211 line as well that people can try if they're ever in this situation. But in our situation, there wasn't anything they could do for us. They put us on to the 1-888 number, which is emergency housing. Homelessness line here in the province, who told us basically there's nothing that they can do for getting us out of our cars into a house. Mom's friend isn't a stranger to blood clots. She was actually put on warfarin for a number of years, which is not the safest. You're supposed to get on that and get off it as soon as possible. And she said, with the way your feet are going, you got to start worrying about blood clots. Now, last year I had a heart attack at 42. So I don't know how that changes things with that kind of a worry, but my feet are really, really swollen. Mom looks at it and she's just, wow, you got to do something about that. But there's nothing I can do. The only place I got to sleep right now is in the car. So
absolutely brutal. So 211 is a bit of a catch-all. Very helpful. I mean, they've got information and organizations people can connect with for a variety of needs, whether it be, hopefully, in some circumstances, housing, food, all kinds of different stuff. They're a good group. We've had them on this program in the past. So it's unfortunate that, the demand is so big on the Red Cross and the Salvation Army that they're tapped out, because they've been very helpful when people face these types of circumstances. And when you say someone else who was involved in a house fire was able to get a place right away, part of the confusion here with the wait list, of which there's some 2,800 people or families, 2,800 applications on the wait list at Newfoundland Labrador Housing, is, that doesn't mean it's only 2,800 people. Who knows how many is incorporated or caught in that 2,800 number. And, there's also a problem with putting the right person in the right unit. If you're a single person and your children have consequently since moved out and those types of things, we really need to be able to move people to the appropriate unit. If you only need a 1-bedroom because you're all by yourself, maybe we do that so that the next family can take your former family home as a part of the housing corporation. So I really feel terrible for you. If anybody wants to connect with me and say they have an option, whether it be short-term, medium-term, or potentially long-term, I'll try to help connect you with them, Jason. People are generally pretty helpful on that front on this show. So, for number one, send me that Facebook, or send me the GoFundMe via Facebook whenever you get a chance. And number two, if anyone reaches out to me, we'll put them in touch with you.
Okay. Awesome, man. I greatly appreciate that, Patty. That's wicked.
Whatever we can do to help, and hopefully this does help. Jason, stay in touch. Keep me in the loop, and good luck.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
All right, let's take a break. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Mike, you're on the air.
Okay, hi, how are you? This is Mike Murray.
Hi, Mike Murray.
How you doing?
Excellent, sir. How about you?
Good. So I recently retired after about 25 years, over 25 years as a Crown attorney. But after my first year, I worked with a private lawyer who did some squatters' rights cases. So I think I know a little bit about the philosophy and the origins behind the law, because that's what you were asking about this morning.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the direct reference was the fact that, prior to January 1st, 1977, adverse possession and or squatters' rights was part of the Crown Lands operations. But after that date, it was amended and, of course, is not applicable at this moment in time. You have to go through the quieting of titles process.
That's right, yeah. So, I mean, the issue was, of course, that, squatters' rights or adverse possession, that concept goes back hundreds of years to the English common law. Mm-hmm. And the philosophy was that it was in the public interest because it's better for land to be used than not used. And of course, in rural Newfoundland, I mean, there was an awful lot of land transfers done that were never documented or registered. People passed houses down and cut their gardens in half and gave half to their kids. And there was I mean, there's a long history of undocumented land transfers in Newfoundland. And back at the time that the legislation was passed, and I can't believe how much I remember about this since it's 30 years ago since I read anything or looked at anything. But back at the time that the legislation was passed, the government, well, number one, in terms of crown land, the government didn't really know what they owned and what they didn't own. So there was a lot of uncertainty there. And number two, I mean, the government would go to build a road or a hospital or a school somewhere, and they'd come across someone with a claim to the land and have to pay out a cash settlement. And then there were people, this is around the time of resettlement, and a lot of people were moving into the larger rural communities. And people were developing and selling off building lots and claiming adverse possession over them. And then another issue was that there were cabins and roads being built in wilderness areas. And the threshold to claim adverse possession wasn't really that high. The legal test is open, notorious, and continuous possession. But really all you need to do is find a couple old fence posts and get a couple affidavits from seniors that lived in the community that remembered your grandfather had a cabbage patch there in the 1940s. So the government decided that we'll allow adverse possession for anybody who had 20 years of use before 1977, but from here on in, we're going to move into the modern era with a clean slate and insist on a title. And actually, what happened in Newfoundland is pretty parallel to what happened in other jurisdictions across the country and across the rest of the common law world. I mean, adverse possession has pretty well gone by the wayside in most places. But that was, I mean, that's the rationale for the legislation being passed in the first place.
Yeah, I understand that, because one of the points you made is better to have land used than not.
Yeah.
But those examples now, it's kind of glaring. Like Adam Furlong was on the program, which is when you heard us talk about squatters' rights.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's trying to operate an agricultural business. Yeah. And they're taking him to task on the most meaningless, irrelevant, small, minor league issues, and consequently, of the farm that we really need in full production as per his business model is being hampered because of government's inability to either understand or B, don't care.
Yeah. No, I mean, I hear you, and I hear what people are saying, too. But I just, heard you mention that you don't know why this law was ever brought in and what reason it could possibly have. And I remembered some of that, so I thought I'd call in and just give that bit of background. I mean, I don't really have a position on any current cases or anything like that. It's far outside my jurisdiction. I just thought I'd give you the background information that I thought might be helpful.
And it was, and I appreciate you making time. I guess the basics for me is if, and not to be Pollyanna here, but if the government's operation should be in our collective best interest, there's no real firm understanding as to why they're so obstinate on this front. We've talked about very specific examples of one family from Carolina or Adam Furlong and others, but at the end of the day, it took a family years, and that included years of legal bills, to end up settling on a $10,000 sum to get the land that they had a house on for 40 plus years. Yeah. I mean, what is it? If it's as simple as the government wants to get paid, then just say that out loud so that we all know what we're getting ourselves into. And, of course, that would be the worst answer they could offer, but it seems to be that's where they are.
Well, I think that's part of it. But like I said, I think part of the original rationale was that they wanted some certainty. They wanted to know what they owned. They didn't want claims against them. And people were, and back in those days too, in the 70s, people were making a lot of money by building subdivisions and claiming adverse possession and building subdivisions. So I mean, that was the rationale at the time. Whether it still holds water now, I don't know. And like I said, I mean, the original justification for adverse possession was that it was considered to be in the public interest because it's better for land to be used than not used. I mean, if you've got land and you let it lie fallow for years and years and don't do anything with it, and someone is actually using it, then we should promote that. I mean, I think that the difference between England, where all this came about, and Newfoundland is that in England you had the nobility, the big landowners who might have huge estates that they weren't using, and small farmers who started using patches of them. Whereas in Newfoundland, the vast majority adverse possession claims wouldn't be against private landowners, which the government doesn't care about, but against the government.
Yeah, and I tried to make that distinction by saying, if there's an example where an individual or a business is purposely trying to hoodwink the government, then we can make that difficult, and we can make that a legal issue. But when it's unbeknownst to me that my property is actually belong to the Crown, and I think I've recommended people go to the government's website and look at the land atlas itself, you'd be shocked just how much of the province is Crown land. So I tried to make that distinction. If I'm trying to get one over on the government to make some money for myself, that's one thing. If I go to sell the home as a senior, want to relocate closer to healthcare services, just to be told that I got to fight the government for the piece of property that I've been paying property tax on for 4 decades, that's a different set of circumstances.
Yeah. No, for sure. Those people have a legitimate point. But anyway, I mean, I just called in for that.
And I appreciate you doing it, Mike. Thanks for this.
Yeah, no problem.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
There we go. Yeah. So the government has the ability to make this a little bit more manageable for individuals, because at this moment in time, number one, it's pretty confusing, and number two, people are finding out the hard way that they've got to go through this effort, time, and cost to try to make a very fundamental real estate transaction. Let's go to line number 1. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Susan.
I am still looking for a place to live, and I'm honest, I'm a senior, I'm honest, I'm responsible, I can pay the rent, and I've been looking for a place in central St. John's. And the most recent difficulty, I found a very good place, is ageism, which I hadn't really encountered directly before. But according to the questions I was being asked in the comments, I didn't get the place, although I was first in the line practically getting there to look at it, and it was perfect. And I'm known as a very honest, responsible renter. I'm just looking for a one-bedroom, unfurnished place in central St. John's, but the ageism issue is something new, and as I said, I can afford to pay rent. And I am used to being very honest, and I'm used to being very responsible, and I'm a senior. But being treated elsewhere or with different standards, whether indirectly or directly, I have not had to face before.
For many of the landlords that I know, I mean, a responsible senior who's going to be quiet and has a track record of being a good tenant who's able to pay, that's the ideal renter. Because, I'm not trying to generalize too much here, but, you know, for younger people who may indeed bring the Friday night parties along, some landlords get a bit worried about that potential circumstance. Yep. So you say ageism is in place. Based on some of the questions and comments you heard, can you share or elaborate how you were made to feel that way?
Well, I don't want to give too much private information away, but when I was asked directly how old I was, and I didn't realize the person was actually serious. I thought they were sort of joking, and I just made a joke about it. But I didn't realize until later that the person was seriously interested and concerned about my age. And then when I found out I didn't get the place, and as I said, I was first in line to come and visit it, I was told various reasons why the landlord was concerned about my ability to do certain things, like to find the garbage correctly and things that are very simple that I do where I am now. And I'm having to leave my apartment here for reasons I don't really know. I'm not allowed to know. Anyway, other than a very fine letter saying what a fine tenant I've been for so long. Anyway, I just thought I would see if you have any new ideas about what I might try to avoid this, I guess I just wish I had thought of it at the time. I would have asked outright, "Why are you asking me that?" But I simply wasn't taking it seriously.
Because it's a strange question. Like, even if I am a potential tenant and I look to be somewhere in my 30s, I'm not sure what that has to do with the price of tea in China if I'm 33 or 37. I mean, if I've got letters of reference and I can show you and demonstrate that I can afford the rent, and what else is there?
Exactly.
It's sort of a strange way to approach it as a landlord.
I would say probably in the future I will not carry a cane. I think that was not probably a sensible idea, but I didn't even think about that being a problem because I am mobile. I'm slow, and I have some macular degeneration, but I can read most and see very well. And I'm intelligent, and I'm sane, and I'm responsible. Anyway, I just thought you might have some new ideas about what I might try. But this is something new that I haven't had to face. I've had to face the fact that there aren't very many places available. Well, I know that's very clear. But to have ageism be another impediment to it is something new to me.
Now that you say all those things, and I'm not sure what I suggested last go around, we'll get to that now in a minute. I wonder if whether or not the landlords are thinking that with this potential tenant and potential mobility issues, am I going to be asked to renovate the apartment to accommodate grab bars and bathrooms and increase the size of doorways, maybe because there might be a wheelchair in the future? I wonder, is that the thought that pops into their mind? And if so, just a suggestion, if I was you, I would simply say, you know what, if you're worried about what I might need in addition to what I can see here with my own two eyes in your apartment, the answer is nothing.
Would you repeat that, please?
So I'm thinking that maybe a landlord, given the fact that you say you're mobile but slow, you can see but not perfect, some landlords might be thinking, before long, this tenant is going to ask me to do X, Y, Z.
Yes.
Grab bars and bathrooms and maybe increase size of doorways and things. Just a suggestion, I would say to them when encountering these types of questions, I would simply say, just to ease your potentially worried mind, I don't need anything beyond what I see. I'm not going to ask you to do X, Y, or Z. I'm not going to ask for grab bars and all these mobility-related additions to your rental unit. Maybe that would, move them away from that worry. And that just popped into my mind. I'm not really sure because I wasn't there to experience it. But that could be part of it. And what did I suggest you do last time? I can't remember.
Well, it wasn't really about the age-related problem.
No, it was just simply about housing.
Yeah, just difficulty finding anything in central St. John's. And I received some phone calls, but they were basement apartments or they were places outside of central St. John's and just not practical for me. I have no family here, and I can't depend on, I have wonderful neighbors, but I can't depend on family to go to or to help me. I just have some very good neighbors.
Right. And, with the distinct shortage of rental units,
yes.
I mean, I know someone who's in the landlord business and he has absolutely nothing. He did try to go rent an apartment. It was either Mount Pearl Paradise. I can't remember the specifics at this moment in time. He put it up on whatever marketplace or wherever he posted it, and he had hundreds of calls within an hour. He says he just couldn't keep up with it, whether it be calls and or messages.
Yeah.
So people are in dire need. Do you have an affordability envelope? Or do you want to offer that in private? Because I will surf around this particular circumstance to some people who I know who might have a place for you. I can't promise because I don't know what their portfolio looks like from day to day.
Yes.
But, single bedroom rentals, whether it be basements or otherwise, we're talking in excess of $1,000 sometimes.
Well, I don't want a basement apartment. I really don't. And I don't want it too far away from central St. John's simply because I have no car. I'm not driving these days. And I need some accessibility to different, to food and other things.
Understood.
And I am very responsible, and I'm very sane at this point. And I think your suggestions are good and useful and practical, and I will keep that in mind. I just wasn't thinking in those terms when I was talking to these people. I was thinking that here I am, I'm ready to pay, I can pay. This place looks excellent to me. It's about the first place I've seen that I could see myself living in, but it was not available to me in particular. And I know that somebody else took it. I don't know. Well, a person was male, I know that, but I don't know the age of the person. I didn't ask that question. So I just thank you for your ideas and your suggestions, and I will appreciate anything else you can say, but I'd really like to have it be fairly central St. John's so that I can have accessibility to the practical things I need. But I'm open to your ideas.
I'm going to give you a telephone number.
Yes?
738
Yes.
4567.
Yes. 738-4657.
No, 4567.
Sometimes with my macular degeneration, I can't read my own writing.
Oh, my eyesight is pretty good, and I can't read my own writing sometimes. So 738-4567, and ask for Darren.
Darren?
Yep.
Darren?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Good luck. Let me know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. Alexander, you're next. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Alexander. You're on the air.
Good morning. Thank you very much for your courtesy, allowing me to have a chat.
Happy to do it.
I wonder if you can, I was really just hoping you could direct me in case it's needed. I don't, on this matter that I'm going to mention, I don't really have any experience with, and I have no idea where I'd call for advocacy or advice. And the issue is that in this case, it pertains to electronics, and I'm sure, as we all know, that can get pretty expensive nowadays.
Yep.
So, and what the issues was, I feel it's inappropriate. I won't mention names of any businesses here. However, a well-known, and I always thought a reputable business who's well-known to us all. And so I felt safe in ordering something online from them, which is my first time doing so. And to my amazement, the whole ball, I'll try to be brief, it showed up last week in the rain, but it didn't show up at my door. It went to my neighbor's.
Okay.
So I had no idea that they were there. And the neighbor didn't know they were there either. I got lucky. They just happened to go to the back door and look over. I guess they were headed for the car. And then, what's this box doing at my back door in the Pelton Rain? Cardboard box. Oh, that must be the package Alexander's talking about. Okay, so they brought it and put it in the porch. So a little later, I got it. And we opened her up. I said, oh, it's probably well packaged. I doubt it's harmed by the rain. And sure enough, it was wrapped up very well. I mean, heavy duty, you know, the bubble pads and that. There's no way the rain was hurting this thing. So I was pleased as punch. And so I hauls all the wrapping knives and everything, and we were all speechless because the hard case, you know, it's hard plastic case goes around these critters to protect them. That's their shell, you know. That's all cracked up and busted up, and a lot of it is missing. So the guts are hanging out and all cracked. It's just a mess with hardware hanging out of it. I said, well, what the heck is this? They said, this can't be what you ordered from them. I said, well, I can't see how. What's going on here? So I said, well, I've done it, and there's parts missing. I said, okay. Well, let's see if there's any way in the face here. Oh, no, you haven't got all the cables for it either. I said, that's okay. I got all the cables you need for that. But of course it cannot possibly work. I said, so, okay, well, I don't feel very distressed because I'm just going to call the company politely, and I'm sure they'll resolve the issue. Hell no. So, to my astonishment, their response was, well, it's not our problem. I said, what do you mean? I bought it from you. No, because that's a third party. That's another party. We're simply selling it. We sell it for them, basically. So it's their problem. So you'll have to call them. And I started to get kind of distressed. He said, but that's okay because we'll contact them right away and they will get a hold of you. They'll call you in less than 24 hours. I mean, less than 48 hours. And I thought, okay, well, that should be the end of the problem. So I wasn't really that worried. And until I said, thank you very much, goodbye. And within 48 hours, I got an email which simply said your package has been delivered with no contact info, no none. So I thought, okay, nuts to this. Now I'm starting to get upset. So nobody wants to take responsibility. And, I'm out enough money for groceries for a month. And I'm an old age pensioner. I can't afford that. So what the heck with this? So I thought, all right, I'm going to look for advocacy groups for consumer issues like this and places to call, see if I can get some support. I don't even know where to call. So just in case my further efforts to reason with these people go astray, have you any advice as to where would a fellow look for?
Sure, I'll give it a swing. Just right off the bat, though, Alexander, you say that the business that sold you the product, whatever it is, electronically, they're blaming it on the delivery company, which is not them. Is that what?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. They're blaming it on the delivery people, but I tried to explain to them. I said, I can tell you safely, the delivery company, which is another well-known, reputable delivery company. Now, I would have thought, although dropping a cardboard box in the pouring rain, the wrong address, never responsible. But all the same. And I said, but it's not them. He said, what is them? I said, no, it is not, because the item was very heavily wrapped up in bubble pad and so on. It didn't even get wet. So don't blame it on them. This item is broken to pieces and totally dysfunctional and junk. And it was packaged and sent to me that way by your other party that you're selling for.
Right. So it's not the delivery aspect. It was the packaging, period.
It's the people who sent it to me saw what they were wrapping up and sending and ignored that completely.
Okay.
Because we already got your money, so we're going to give you our junk.
Well, the only real place, I mean, people will talk about the Better Business Bureau, okay, but provincially speaking, the Department of Consumer Affairs is actually Service NL. So that's the government department that fields these type of complaints. They have some resolution mechanisms in place. People have some potential success. So that's the only real place you can file this type of complaint. I don't think there's an ombudsman for that specific industry, but if I was going to take the time to formally complain, I'd do it in both places. Go to Service NL provincially and the Better Business Bureau, just to lodge it. Whether or not you get any satisfaction, the issue is if complaints pile up against any of these companies, then that's where there might indeed be some traction potentially for you or others behind you. So that's what I would do.
Yeah, it's pretty much all about the idea that you don't have to have the next guy. Well, I have learned they actually just lost a lot of money anyway, because I'll never order anything online again, ever. But now on top of that, my kids got money, and you know what? They're well off, better than me, and they're now resulting. Oh yeah, we're not going to do that ever again either. So the whole thing snowballed. So it really isn't a good way to enhance the reputation of your business. Businesses run on their reputation.
Oh, absolutely, which is sometimes why I don't understand why they don't try to resolve these issues. Because you'll tell your buddies your experience. Consequently, they might not shop there. And then when it starts to circulate around, there's a bunch of things. People shop for variety, they shop for price, but they also shop for customer service, which is one area where I think shopping local gives you the best chance to reach out, be able to physically see and speak with someone versus a customer service person who's sitting maybe in Mississippi or whatever. So the reputation gets very quickly salted. And if that's the way they're going to handle themselves, then they might find themselves looking for creditor protection. Why? Because they did a terrible job with customer service. So those are the two places that I would file a formal complaint to, Alexander. Give it a shot.
Well, my pleasure. Yeah, thanks very much. I wish you all a beautiful day today.
You too. Take good care.
My pleasure.
Mine. Bye-bye. All right. And, quickly on that front, being able to buck the trend of ordering stuff online, that's going to be a really tricky piece of business. Now smaller operations have tried to move some of their offerings online as well. That's where a lot of the world lives. But just a very quick point. It's probably a decent consideration to have the product that you order delivered to where you work. Why? Because there's someone usually there at whether it be reception or what have you, a much more secure opportunity to ensure that you don't see your package 5-finger discounted. So the concept of porch pirate is very real. So, you know, unless you've got neighbors looking out for neighbors and they see a package dropped off and they collect it for you, there's people actually going around behind delivery vans, robbing packages off stoops all the time. So maybe, just maybe, if you're worried about that, or if it's happened to you, just have it delivered to your office or where you work or somewhere like where, if your mom's home all the time, that type of thing. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about connections for seniors. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. MJ, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, Patty. This is MJ. I was living with Connections for Seniors.
Okay.
And that was on Prince of Wales Street. But anyways, I gave the office 8 rings, and they only gave me back 4. I bought a bed for my grandson, and they gave me a mattress. They never gave me the back spring. And there was 3 boxes more up there belonged to me, which I never ever got.
So were you in their supportive housing program, or was this emergency housing? Why were you there?
Because I was living in a shelter.
Okay.
And Nick took me down to Bay. He's one of the workers on Pennywell Road to get my stuff. And he never even took my family pictures or nothing.
I mean, maybe this is a dumb question, but why did you give anybody any rings? Are we talking about rings for, like, on your finger rings?
Yes.
Why would you give them your rings?
Because I didn't want them having on my fingers, right? As I was losing weight off my fingers, right?
Okay.
And I gave him 8, and I asked for my rings back, and he only gave me 4. So where did the other 4 go? No one got the keys, only the office.
So when you give them the rings, do they just put them in a safe or just put them in a drawer in an office? Or
No, they put them in a safe, and they put my name on them.
Okay. I mean, is there any, like, real value to these rings?
Yes.
Oh,
yes, they are. My son gave me rings, my family.
Okay.
And I had a fan up there, 2 fans. One fan cost me $250, and I'm not worried about the other fan, the stand-up one. But then, what else? Just a load of gear I had. And they said they don't have it. Where's the 2? It was in the office on Pennywell Road, and Nick took a picture of it, the guy that worked there. But now all these people, as after leaving Connections for Seniors, which I don't know why, but I do want my stuff back.
Of course you do. So I don't know what would be in the other 3 boxes, or 1 expensive fan, or 4 meaningful rings. I don't know why they wouldn't give them back. I mean, for the most part, the value is sentimental to you. I mean,
yes.
Trying to sell off a piece of jewelry is, people get pennies on the dollar for it. So I don't know why. Do they say they don't have it, or?
Yeah, they said they don't have it. I said, well, where did it go? I said, we don't have keys. I said, you're the only one got keys. And they just looked at me if I'm stupid.
Well, no one needs to be treated like that in the first place. So just a quick question. This is not about the lost property. So if you're not with Connections for Seniors anymore on Prince of Wales Street, where are you? Where are you living?
I'm on 18 Springdale Street with Salvation Army.
Okay.
They got apartments on the 3rd and the 4th.
Okay. So you've got a safe place to be anyway.
Yes.
Okay, that's the good news. I mean, I can send along a note and do some follow-up to see if anyone's been able to have another look around and see if they can find the boxes, the fan, and the rings. That much.
And my box spring, they never even gave me that.
Oh, that's right, the box spring too. Yeah.
And they only gave me the mattress.
I mean,
and it was brand new, I bought.
And which is also strange because the value is the mattress, not the box spring.
Yeah, that's right. And he thinks they can do what they like.
Well, let's see if we can't try to help on your behalf. I can't make any promises because I have no earthly idea exactly what's going on here. But and if I just say MJ, they'll know who I'm talking about, will they?
Oh, they know.
I got a funny feeling they would.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because I didn't put up with any nonsense with them either.
So you say it was with you and your son, I think, is who you bought the bed for. Is he also with you?
No, my grandson.
Grandson. Is he with you out in Springdale?
And no, he's up in Kitchener.
Oh, who's in
Because
Kitchener?
they were coming down for a holiday, right?
Oh, I see. Okay. So that's where he lives full time, is Kitchener?
Yes.
Oh, very well. Okay. So, MJ, let's all take one swing at it, and hopefully we can help figure it out.
And also, I found MTV about it.
Okay.
And they asked me, did I speak to you? And I said, no. And so they said, well, I'm going to see if I can do anything. And I said, well, I will phone Patty about it anyway, right?
Yep, like you would.
So I would appreciate having all my stuff back, because they had no right to keep my gear.
No, they obviously don't have a right to keep your stuff. And so if anyone's listening at the Connections for Seniors today, can you have another look around and see if between 3 boxes, a fan, a box spring, and 4 rings belong to
MJ? The spring is on the bed that I left.
The box spring is on the bed, so that shouldn't be too hard to find.
No.
Maybe the other stuff might be a little trickier, but if
No, it was in the office downstairs in the in the basement somewhere.
Okay.
But Nick took a picture of it all because I was there when he done all that.
Okay.
So where did it go?
I don't know. So if someone's listening there this morning, you've heard MJ, let's get the stuff back to her. She's not too far away from Prince of Wales, so she's just right there on Springdale. So leave it with us, MJ. We'll see if we can get some reaction.
Okay, thank you very much, Patty.
You're welcome. All the best.
Bye.
All right, bye-bye. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, still plenty of time to have you on the program. If you're in and around town, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. We're taking a break, and then we're coming back.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back to the program. Let's go to line number 7. Good morning, Lexi. You're on the air.
Hi.
Hi there.
How are you?
I'm doing well this morning. Thanks. How about you?
I'm doing well as well. Thank you.
So I'm trying to find the email that someone forwarded me earlier this morning, and I think I got it. Okay, so we are talking about Newfoundland Labrador Trail Groups awarded some money, right?
Yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Tell us exactly what's happening.
So essentially, I work for an organization called Trans-Canada Trail. We actually have trail across the country, also in Newfoundland, which we're chatting about today. And we run a program annually or biannually where we provide a small maintenance grant to groups who are taking care of the trail. And essentially it just brings, it's to help the groups in bringing their trail from one season to the next. So from the winter kind of wet, cold, if there's any issues on the trail, into the spring, the busy season, stuff like that. So, yeah, we work with a lot of different groups to do that, essentially, is kind of the program, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, inside the trail networks, the unfortunate reality is the spring thaw reveals the winter garbage and maybe some repairs that are required. So it's double whammy. Is this earmarked simply for cleaning the place up, or is it to, repair some fencing or bridges or rock work, or what is it for? Or is it up to the individual portion of whatever trail?
Yeah, so it's really up to the group or the individual who is managing that trail section to decide what they would like to do with the money. And as you said, kind of the thaw reveals a lot. So if they notice that there's a fence or boardwalk that needs repairing, they can totally do that. If the trail seems to be in pretty good shape, they can, we encourage groups to just hold annual cleanups. So that can just entail, getting a group of volunteers together and cleaning it up, like in terms of garbage, like walking it, ensuring there's no garbage, branches, trees falling, stuff like that. So it can be really simple and more of a volunteer engagement opportunity, or it could be more like, let's repair a bridge or a boardwalk or something like that. So it just really is whatever the trail needs.
Sure. And who are the lucky recipients this go around in this province?
Yeah, so we have 10 grants were granted in total. I don't have the full list for Newfoundland, but we can. The Newfoundland Trailway has been granted. There's some groups on the Confederation Drive, the East Coast Trail, the Pioneer Footpath in Labrador. So, 10 grants in total were granted. So that was $12,750 of trail grants in your province.
Yeah, and I think they're trying to upgrade some infrastructure for guided hikes on the East Coast Trail, which is 336 kilometres of trail. Some 65 different paths are part of the East Coast Trail. I know that the Trans-Canada Trail is, I believe, the longest trail network in the world. 28 or 29,000 kilometres?
Yeah, so 28 kilometers on land and water. So we have land and water trail. It goes all the way out west, all the way out east, all the way up north, which is kind of cool. So, yeah.
There's actually a proposal here, part forward by the provincial government, to expand the trail network up into the Great Northern Peninsula in this province. Hundreds of kilometres there as well. I mean, and you never know, whether it be for locals to use for their own hiking purposes or what have you, and or there's actually a segment of the tourism world that is very attracted to these things. So whether it be on the East Coast Trail or the Great Northern Peninsula or portions of the Trans-Canada Trail, because you might be coming for the culinary scene, you might be coming because of a UNESCO World Heritage Site, or you might be coming because you've seen the vistas, whether it be for icebergs, whales and puffins or what have you, and the proximity of these beautiful trails to some of those sites and scenes. So anyway, good on you for awarding those 4 programs some monies here for the spring cleanup. And I believe Trail Care Day is, what was it, the 1st of May or is it the 1st of June?
1st of June,
1st
exactly.
Of June.
Yes,
okay.
Yes. So that one we're Newfoundland Trailway is hosting a larger event, removing debris, clearing washouts. They're doing a variety of a few things on their trail section. But yeah, that's June 1st is the day that's happening.
I appreciate the time this morning. Lexi, anything else you'd like to tell us?
I don't think so. Yeah, I enjoyed the conversation. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. Stay in touch and good luck. Have a great hiking season.
Thank you. You too.
Okay. Bye-bye. All right, let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 2. Ron, you're on the air.
Yes, Paddy, good morning.
Good morning.
I called in this morning to give some praise to someone, but before I do that, I'd like to give praise for you and the boys behind the scenes with you there, Fance and Dave, and some of these topics calling in here, you're always there. 3 of you guys are there to help these people out all the time, so whether it's something on the walking trail or people, some of the previous callers you had. So I'd just like to acknowledge that and tell you, man.
Yeah, we appreciate it. We help when we can. We can't always promise any help because some issues are pretty dicey and tricky.
Yeah, you got a lot of heavy topics there. And today is a bit more lighthearted for me.
Good.
Sort of thing. It's not joking, lighthearted. But anyway, did you ever hear tell of a hockey tournament called Mike's Crew Tournament?
I believe I had. Is this Mike Haggerty?
No. It's an official that passed away. They got a memorial tournament in his honor every year. But I knew an official up there, so I'll pop up now, taking a game or two. And then, gee whiz, I was blown out of the water when I pulled into the parking lot at the Gould's Arena on Saturday. I went to a bunch of tournaments, seen all the cars. I said, gee, pretty good, it's not bad. Got a good turnout there and everything. And, so it's called Mike's Crew Tournament. I never really thought about this before, but all the hockey is done now. So all 10 teams are comprised of officials from, the Avalon Peninsula. Linesmen, referees, I guess scorekeepers and stuff like that. And you have to have an affiliate. You got to be officially an official to be in the tournament. And, these guys skate for a living kind of thing, right, man? Great hockey up there. Went in there. They had the big tent set up. They had the hats and hams on the go, 50-50 draws. They had the... Man, I tell you, and I got talking to a few of the guys, and I didn't know them. I was just chatting away with a few guys up there and that. And I never really realized, I know you're a hockey guy yourself. I coach a bit of hockey and stuff like that. And, you got kids that can afford things and can't afford, and you try to do things behind the scenes, stuff like that. Never really thought about officials before, though. But, say if you got a young kid and you're going to get new officiating and everything, someone's getting into hockey, you got to go buy hockey equipment. So I guess you got to buy officiating equipment, the pads, the pants, the jerseys, whatever like that. And last year, these guys, from the money they raised, they outfitted every new official in Newfoundland and Labrador with a new jersey. And I think that's pretty cool. I said, Buddy said, this year we're trying to get them like say Jersey's pants or maybe Jersey's helmet, and they supplied pants in the past and that. So I never thought about this thing before, and they're up there and they're taking donations at the door, and the most unique thing I found about the tournament, if there's any hockey people out there listening for rec leagues and stuff like that, I went in there. The games are 20 minutes long. They had like 10 teams. They ran this off Friday night and Saturday. They played 29 games in one night and one day.
Yeah. And so they just try to whip through 3 games an hour before they have to clean the ice. I'm racking my brain here to come up with his name. I'm pretty sure his name was Mike Dinn, right?
Yes.
Okay.
It is. I didn't want to say the name. I'm not associated with this. I just went up to the game. I knew someone, right?
Yeah. No, everybody, in the hockey world would have been familiar with Mike. He was around for a couple of decades. He was actually an instructor, which was really quite beneficial. When you get the senior guys giving back to the new up-and-coming refs. So, yeah, his name is Mike Dinn, and I'm pretty sure he was from the Ghouls. And I don't know how many years they've been running this tournament, but Mike's been dead over a decade. I can't remember when he passed, and he was a relatively young man. So, yeah, Mike's crew is about Mike Dinn.
Yes, and I'll tell you something. Talking to these guys, I met people up there that are I said, why are you playing in this tournament? You're supposed to be an official. He said, I officiated in high school, like minor hockey, whatever, right? Yeah. And I met a lot of people up there that I knew, but I never knew they officiated before in their previous life kind of thing, right? And I met one guy, and I bumped into this one. I know you're a hockey guy. I can sort of picture. It was your father's name, Pat, as well?
Yeah.
I could picture him almost. He was a big man. Did he always wear like a big long coat when you go to the games?
Not really sure.
He usually dressed like kind of thing, like a businessman or something or whatever.
Yeah, Dad wore a shirt and tie most every day of his adult life.
Yeah. Did he smoke a cigar?
Yeah, and a pipe.
Okay, I can picture him now. I can picture you being escorted off the ice and him stood up in the bleachers at the stadium having to puff on his cigar, looking at you going through the gate down there. And I met this official up there yesterday, Roy Baggs, and I said, geez, I wonder if he's old enough to have refed any of the games Paddy Daly was doing kind of thing, right? So
probably.
I don't know if you know that name or not. But
I do, and unfortunately I have a working relationship with referees. I ran afoul of them fairly often as a player.
I watched. I'm sure I watched you. You're a Celtics boy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I watched you playing against some of the boys down at the stadium and that. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. So, but yeah, this tournament they played 20. We won't go too far in that way. So, but this tournament, 29 games. The biggest goal spread up there was 4 goals.
Cool.
And Paradise defeated Northeast 4-3 in championship game. Yeah.
Fair ball, Ron. I appreciate the time. I'm glad you enjoyed the tournament.
Yeah, and the boys did have a few pops up there, as Dan would say.
You would.
So, yeah.
It's all part of it.
Thanks, Patty.
Okay, buddy. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right, and I'll save it for tomorrow morning, the preamble, but there was also a pretty major hockey tournament over this past weekend, and for the most part, hockey is done now in the minor and amateur ranks. They played for the Boyle over the weekend. For 121 years, the Boyle has been participated for. I think it's the second oldest hockey tournament trophy in the country, I think behind only the Allen Cup. Let's take a break. When we come back, Sandy's there to talk about Vera Pellin, and caller wants to talk about pertussis. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Sandy, you're on the air.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Thanks. How about you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for letting me take a call today. I want to say hi to all your listeners. We just clued up our Spring Days lottery yesterday. And this is a shout out to all of our sponsors and all those who shared our posts and all those who called in and went online and brought a ticket. So we hope and we know that we raise a few $1,000s, and as you know, all those funds go right back into all the services that we provide to those living with intellectual disabilities in our communities.
Absolutely, and we had a couple of people on. You might be one of them, Sandy, to give the folks a heads up as to what was happening. So just give us a recap. What was happening to lead up to this bit of money being raised?
Okay, so we did an online fundraiser. We did everything in-house, which we're super excited about it because it employed some of individuals living with intellectual disabilities. So it was a win-win. We had a $20 ticket out there, and we had over 14 sponsors in our community locally who donated their time and their expenses and their products to help us put together an amazing prize valued over $40,000 in gift cards and merchandise, or you could have took the $25,000 cash option. So all this money, like I just said, goes right back into our programs. The more money we raise, the more people that we can service in the St. John's and surrounding areas.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's awesome, and I actually know some of your clients. Is that the right word?
Yes.
Is that
yes,
what you
it
would
is.
call them? Okay. So, and you know, without organizations like yours, an awful lot of people would be, you know, possibly stuck home with none of the additional supports, none of the activities or events they can participate in, whether it be in the band or otherwise.
Exactly. So, I mean, you know, we have, you know, employment services, we have day programs, we have a summer program, we have an evening program. We have programs even outside of that. Because if you're not attending our programs directly, you can actually receive our services indirectly. I mean, whether you're coming into our day program and, you know, making friends and learning some life skills, or if you need help to make an day-to-day end meets, we're here to help everybody as much as we possibly can.
And I mean, doing a great job at it.
I appreciate that.
I'm glad to hear it was a success. Anything else you want to tell us about this morning while we have you?
No, that's good. Just a huge shout out to everybody who supported this. It was a huge win-win for everybody. And the draw day is on May the 17th. For those who missed out on the ticket, no worries. We got something else planned.
Well, keep us in the loop. And on the 17th, if you'd like to announce some winners, you can do it right here on the show.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Have a great day. And it looks like we got a little bit of spring, so it's a win-win for that today too, Patty.
I'm looking forward to a little vitamin D myself today.
Awesome. Take care, and thank you very much for your continuous support.
My pleasure. Stay in touch,
care.
Sandy. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right, let's keep rolling here. Let's go to line number 3. Caller, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you today?
Great today. How about you?
Not so good. I'm calling about whooping cough or pertussis.
Uh-huh.
That is actually going around in my current community right now. Our son came home from school and he had a cough, and then anyway, it lasted for about 2 weeks, and we decided to bring him to the Janeway, and they did a swab last Monday, and on Wednesday it was confirmed whooping cough pertussis. So immediately following that diagnosis, a prescription was called in to our local pharmacy, and CDC Community Health was contacted. And they contacted me telling me to isolate my son for 5 days. Anyway, I did some reading on the internet, and they were saying that everybody in the house should be treated. So I called 811 and told them my situation and that, you know, do I need to be treated? And they said, well, not until you show symptoms. So I said, oh, okay. So anyway, the weekend goes by. I'm showing symptoms. I have been fully vaccinated. My son has been fully vaccinated, but for some reason, whooping cough is rampant in his school, and my son is the only one that had labs done. And this is like this hugely infectious disease, which, like COVID, is very bad for children who have not yet vaccinated because they're like under 6 months of age, or people with compromised immune systems. I haven't had a tetanus or pertussis vaccination since like 2003 because guess what? I didn't know whooping cough was on the go in my community.
Yeah, it's always around. You know, for very small children, it can be a problem. Whether it be for pneumonia, there's actual potential for neurological issues attached to a whooping cough. And, you know, the vaccination is given early in life. And I believe the recommendation for the booster is 10 years or something after your high school dose. But, I mean, I think I recall the story last week, the week before, is that apparently there's 3 or 4 cases every year, but since January there's been somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 cases. So looks like it's circulating in pretty strong form, and apparently in your community. And did you say the community yet?
No, it's in Holyrood.
It's in Holyrood,
but,
okay.
The doctor at the Janeway said St. John's is full of it, and they're calling it the 100-day cough. So if anybody has a cough that's over 100 days, you probably have whooping pertussis cough.
Yeah.
And people don't realize it because they're not being swabbed. My child was the only one that was swabbed in our school. To Community Health then announced to all of the teachers, to all of the parents through a letter that whooping cough is in the school. But I know that he got it from school, And I know that all of his friends have coughs too. So my concern is that it's out in the public and there isn't like an announcement being made that, you know, if your child has a cough longer than 2 weeks, maybe you should go get them swabbed, or maybe community health should go there and swab them, or like maybe like is this another COVID?
I don't know, but I do know when, as it pertains to antibiotics, for instance, if you don't get to it in, I believe it's the first 2 or 3 weeks, and the antibiotics are of no use to you, and they wouldn't prescribe them. So fair ball. If you are, maybe it's worth getting tested for to ensure you know what you're getting yourself into, and you can cough it out of you. I mean, but it's going to take, I don't know, months to do it, and at that point you may have infected everyone around you. Or is it the 3-week cough?
The other part, yes. So I'm showing symptoms, so I call back community health. And they're like, our hands are tied, we can't do anything. So then I call back the CDC nurse, and she's like, contact your family doctor. So my family doctor, she's a fantastic doctor, but she's burnt out, and she's on ease back herself. She only works 40 hours a week, which kind of, to me, sounds like a full week. But obviously she's so busy that, you know what I mean? Like her doctor has cut her back. So I can't get an appointment with my family doctor. I can't get, and then when I called 811, they gave me the number to the Black Marsh Road Clinic to get a phone-in call so someone could possibly give me antibiotics.
Yeah.
And she told me that they're full, and I can't call back till Wednesday. So in the meantime, should I be isolating? Nobody's told me this. Am I infecting other people? My husband, he goes to work. We sleep in the same bed. He probably has it too.
Quite likely. And I'm not a doctor, so I don't speak to these terms with any sort of authority. But, you know, it generally impacts children. But adults can get it, obviously, because you got it. And it can be pretty highly contagious. I mean, have you arrived at the coughing fits where you get the old whoop? Because that's why they call it whooping cough, is people have these pretty serious coughing fits. And then, of course, at some point they're forced to inhale, and it comes in the big sound of a, right, whoop.
Well, that's exactly what's happening with our son. He was treated with 5 days of antibiotics. When he coughs, he lies down on the floor, and he can't get his breath, and the sound, he pulls the air back into his lungs to try to catch his breath.
Yeah.
It is so scary. I'm like, I don't want to get this, so I want to get the antibiotics now, but I can't get the antibiotics because of our healthcare system. And here's the other thing. Why are parents not getting their children vaccinated and send them to school? My kid, who is vaccinated, by the way, but he's still catching it. I mean, are we going to go back to polio? Are our kids going to have rickets?
There is certainly some vaccine hesitancy out there as a result of the pandemic and all the questions being asked about the mRNA vaccine. But, I mean, things that are tried and true, the MMRs and the things that we all got, you know, whether it be for smallpox or otherwise, we understand how some of these work and how effective they've been. And it's going to be a long time overcoming some of the hesitancy that has now reappeared. I mean, there's measles outbreaks all over the place, for God's sake.
There's measles outbreaks in Nova Scotia right now. So apparently that's coming here to Newfoundland, according to the community. So, like, what is happening to the world, and why are children allowed to not be vaccinated? If these children grow up and go to work in hospitals, in order to have that job, they have to be vaccinated for all sorts of things.
Well, I mean, if you want to go to med
why
school.
Why don't the children have a voice? How come some wingnut who listens to Jenny McCarthy on CNN, who thinks that these vaccinations are causing autism, which is not factually based, which is a study that was like 50 years ago, and that doctor has since lost his license, but way back in the day.
Well, we know that's simply not true, and it was not only what people call debunked, it was absolutely shredded, and there's absolutely no causal link that's ever been discovered, and there's only one doctor put one unpeer-reviewed report into some medical journal who should not have published it in the first place. And so consequently, there's been a snowball of things that have contributed to this mindset regarding vaccines, and it's not helpful, but it's real. And the measles issue, I mean, you can look around in different pockets of the world. Measles are back in pretty strong force, and that's a pretty potentially dangerous disease to have a reappearance at this level. I appreciate your time this morning. I hope everyone in the family is okay. And, you know, you can cough yourself out of it, but it's a long, I think they call it a 3-week cough, isn't it? Isn't that? Or the 3-month cough?
The Janeway doctors calling it the Hunter-Day cough.
Yeah,
so my
3-month
intention for
cough.
this is to let everybody know that if you haven't had your tetanus pertussis for at least 10 years, you can get it done every 5 years. But I would highly recommend getting it as soon as possible, because
It is everywhere, and nobody's telling anybody about it.
Yeah, I know
And
Dr.
nobody can
Fitzgerald
test it.
was out there, but maybe it's the message not getting through. I appreciate the time. Anything else before I get
Thank
going?
you. No, that's it. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, it's out there. I don't know how rampant it might be. I have a wife who works in the school, and it is predominantly an illness that affects children. But there's no question adults can get it. And there's a different set of worries associated with your age and when you're getting the whooping cough. Let's take a break for the newscast. When we come back, tons of time for you to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back to the program. Well, there was something just popped in my mind last week when Jerry Lynn Mackey was talking to someone from ACT about smoking and vaping and the like. And we know that there's been a ban of smoking and vaping on government properties. How or when and if it's being enforced, I guess, is still up for debate. There are concerns, particularly on school grounds, with the just surge in the number of young people that are vaping on school grounds. You just drive by a junior high school today, and you will see the plumes of vape that are flying out into the sky. But it got me to thinking about lawsuit that was talked about in this province against big tobacco companies. And we're just wondering what the status of it would be. Now, back in March of 2019 in the province of Quebec, as a result of a class action lawsuit, there was a cash award of $13.5 billion shared. Then, just over the weekend, I read a story about the province of Manitoba. They have settled their lawsuit with big tobacco as well. Now, it's still in the hands of the federal government, who was part of the suit itself. But in Manitoba, they figure that it's going to be every bit of $500 million, possibly into the billions. We don't know when the first payments are going to start, probably late this year or early in 2025. But it's just an update as to exactly what was going on. When these suits were launched back in 2010, there was mention of all the territories and 10 provinces that were all part of it. The story gets a little bit curious when you go down a little further. And of course, in Manitoba, they sued the tobacco companies to recover costs associated with healthcare services. So the lawsuit named Imperial Tobacco, Rothmans, Benson & Hedges, and JTI McDonald. And yes, they have settled, and yes, it's going to be huge monies injected into the province of Manitoba, and they're going to build a cancer care centre with the money that's coming in the door. But then the story goes on to read, at this moment, the provinces push those businesses into credit protection in some cases, but they talk about 6 provinces that are using the same law firm that settled this one on behalf of Manitoba. And it says New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and British Columbia working together with the same legal team. No mention of this province. So the question remains, are we still actively pursuing it? Because if the awards are coming, then we should probably get in on the action before all these companies and the creditor protection that is going to be associated with it, and we might be left on the outside looking in. So if the other 6 aforementioned provinces are working with that same legal team, is it simply stalled? Is it simply a local law firm? And I think I know which one was awarded the case back in the day. But it'd be nice to get an update on that front because we know the dangers associated with it. We know the concerns that people have with the promotion of smoking and the explosion in the number of youth that are using the vaping products, which may indeed lead them down the path to pick up the darts themselves. And then it's the type of regulations associated with it, possibly. Look, some of the concerns that has been shared, of course, it's the flavors. You know, you can get something that's watermelon flavor, which would be much more palpable than maybe getting something that tastes like nicotine. And there is nicotine in these things. But then the problem, as described by folks who know more about it than me, is even if and when we handle it similar to how we handle tobacco products, which was a ban on marketing, a ban on associating one cigarette company or another. Like, remember when the Women's National Professional Golf Tournament was the Du Maurier. And there was many of the big, high-profile auto races that were named after tobacco companies and some of the sponsors of the cars themselves. And now you're not allowed to do that. But the vapes, they're out there and marketed very much directed at their target market, which is, of course, young people. What I hear advocates talk about those, even if you get into more regulation inside retail outlets, if you push people, and they will continue to go get these things, because we know prohibition hasn't worked on any level, on any front, whether it be with alcohol or the war on drugs or anything, is they're going to buy them from sites that are less than reputable and potentially selling them really harmful stuff, even more harmful than the things that they can buy at their local corner store. So, again, We'll see if we can get an update about the status of this particular lawsuit against Big Tobacco. And we have seen a pretty significant prevalence of tobacco use in this province. So if we can see if we can get an update on that front. And as I said off the top of the program this morning, we will indeed try to get a little deeper into the initial report from Marie-Josée Hogg regarding foreign interference into the last two federal elections, 19 and 21. We know full well that this is happening well before then, and the worry is that it's going to be even worse into the future. So it seems quite clear that the Chinese were absolutely meddling in the most recent election. They mentioned India, they mentioned Pakistan. The problem then becomes, Marie-Josée Hogg, Justice Marie-Josée Hogg, says that there is no evidence that it actually determined the outcome of the election. Because we vote on paper, we count by hand, scrutineers are in the room, so there's the obvious right there. The problem is, and this has been buoyed and boosted and supported by the fact that when I said that the primary goal of these bad actors is to have Canadians, their trust in the integrity of institutions like the election, to see it eroded. And as soon as I said it, I was proved right. Because I had a bunch of people email me saying things like, we still think the election was stolen here in Canada in 21, pretty sure the election was stolen in the United States in 2020. I mean, the prevalence of that thought process is very real. A couple of people went on to say that if in the next election, they think that if the current governing party, albeit in a minority parliament, is re-elected, then we're going to see things like January 6th replicated here in the country. I mean, some of it's complete and utter madness, right? It really, truly is. But if there's no proof, now, there's lots of questions about the who knew what when and whether or not the information flowed as it should throughout government. There's lots of questions as to whether or not government officials understood what they were being briefed on. And one of the specific cases there was Han Dong, right? He was a Liberal candidate, and the nomination process, they say, could have been finagled or meddled in by the Chinese because they were busing loads of students into the nomination process to vote for Mr. Dong. When the government, in particular the Prime Minister, was made aware of this, they said that they didn't see enough credibility to the allegations in a riding where the Liberals were very secure anyway to do anything about Han Dong's nomination. So, again, if CSIS, who know much more about intelligence gathering, dissemination of information, they know more about it than any Prime Minister currently or into the future will. So how is that determination left to simply politicians? Because if we're not sharing the information, if we're not being frank and honest, then the erosion of trust is even going to get worse, which is to all our collective detriment. There's no good can come of any of that stuff. But that's some of the issues regarding foreign interference. Also, there's a news story. Remember, I just mentioned India just then. Remember, it's not that long ago when there was an assassination of a Canadian citizen on Canadian soil, a fellow named Hardeep Singh Nijjar. Now, he's a Sikh separatist, and he's talking about asking for the homeland of the Khalistan, right? That's a homeland for Sikh separatists in India. He's been labeled by the Modi government as a terrorist, but even if that's the way they think about this fella, the allegations brought forward by the Prime Minister, much to the chagrin of many, is that he alleged in public that the Indian government and Indian government agents were responsible for his murder. And so after the investigation continued with American partners and otherwise, there was 3 arrests made in Edmonton over the weekend. 3 men have been charged. And the assertion at this moment in time, it hasn't been to court yet obviously, is that they were agents of the Indian government. And even some other potential plots of assassinations in Canada, in the United States. And this is not unique to North America either. So those arrests have been made. And, so people want to have it both ways. It's either you want the government to act on the intelligence and to make it publicly understood and known, like happened with the assassination of Mr. Nijjar in British Columbia, or you don't want them to talk about it. But we can't have it both ways, simply based on what party you like or whether or not you hate Justin Trudeau. It's sort of irrelevant, because at some point in time, and it could be the next election, we'll have a different party in power. We'll have a different Prime Minister. So it's the process that is of concern. It's not whether or not the candidate or the party you favour is currently holding any seat of power. It's the whole thing, and it's the whole kit and caboodle of integrity and faith in democratic institutions, which is unfortunately being finagled by rage-baiting rage farmers. Anyway, let's take our final break of the morning. If you want to join us, you can do exactly that right after this break. If you're in the St. John's metro region, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, it's toll-free long distance 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. We're taking a break, and then we're coming back.
This is Open Line on the VOCM Big Land FM radio network.
Welcome back to the program. Well, I'm never really sure exactly how someone's going to hear something that I say or another caller says, but a couple of things. No sense asking me to defend or to speak to what someone else said. If I said it, then fair enough. If someone else said it, that's on them. Secondly, and this is in regard to my comment that I'm not sure how people hear things, but we spoke off the top this morning about the proposed boycott of Loblaws, and specifically Dominion. Okay, I mentioned the fact that the Reddit group is some 73,000 people strong, and it seems to be growing every single day, because when we talked about it last week, it was about 62,000, so obviously people are signing on. The comment I made that has drawn the ire of some is that I said I walked by Dominion down around Kitty Vitty on Saturday, and what I noticed was a pretty full parking lot, which did not include any soccer games at King George, and maybe some people had parked there to walk around the lake, but it seemed to me a lot of it was because people were shopping at Dominion. So the concerned emailer said, why paint that picture that the boycott's not working? I have no idea if it's working or not. But the fact is, there was people shopping at Dominion. And some people will join in on these boycotts in full. And they may never go back to Dominion ever again. And of course, the concept there is how much money is being made. And in the world of revenue, some are $13.5 billion in the first quarter of this year, a 4.5% increase in revenue in the shop. And of course, they will tell you that it's not just about food, because they sell most everything under the sun. You can buy utensils, you can buy clothes, you can buy pharmaceuticals. So there's a lot that contributes to the revenue stream. But I don't know why anyone think that all of a sudden I'm in support of Loblaws. What? I'm the grocery shopper in my house. I have that little pang of nerves and worry when I pull up to the grocery store, because everything that we touch is wicked expensive. And on top of that, like even inside the boycott, and look, you can boycott and say and think what you feel, but one of their demands is decided on the Grocery Code of Conduct. That sounds good. They're talking about an immediate 15% reduction in price. Okay, wouldn't it be lovely if that was the outcome? But here's some of the problems associated with price. The fact of the matter is, because of some shoddy labeling practices, and I'm not so sure every grocery shopper out there knows exactly what the weight is inside, whether it be the box of cereal you've been buying or the block of cheese you've been buying. Now, things that are noticeably smaller, even for the laziest shopper, you can recognize that. But when there's been a reduction in content, because for things that are inside a package and you can't see, that's happened. And so what they call it is shrinkflation, of course, and you've heard me talk about this. So I'm paying the same or more for less. So even when prices in some way, hopefully in the near future, come back to reality or come back to earth, the problem is trying to put that genie back in the bottle to deal with issues regarding shrinkage. I mean, we're going to be a long time overcoming that. The whole issue for the manufacturers, it's really, it's a science. So they've gotten away with the shrinkflation. They haven't necessarily reflected it on the labeling and the packaging to let you know that you're paying the same or more for less product. And then add into it what has simply been a piece of marketing as opposed to my protection, and that would be the whole concept of best before dates. Interesting poll result that was floating around last week is that more Canadians now are willing to ignore the best before date, like you would and like you should. It's not an expiry date, it's a recommendation. Now, I do pay attention to it when it comes to things like dairy, well, because that's just in my head. But for other things, if it was set to expire on the 6th of May, if it was set to go beyond its best before date on the 6th of May, and it's a granola bar in the original wrapper, I'm eating it today. I'm eating it tomorrow. And more Canadians, and I assume it's not because of education campaigns about the fact that best before doesn't mean that you should not eat it. It's simply a recommendation. And it might lose some of its quality and it might lose some of its nutritional value, but it is absolutely perfectly fine to continue eating it. And why wouldn't many of us? And yes, directly related to grocery prices. So look, if you're boycotting Loblaws, fill your boots. And hopefully they feel the pain. Now, if 73,000 people are on this particular Reddit group, if every single one of them boycotted that chain for the entirety of the month of May, I'm not sure that's going to hit them that hard. But if more Canadians did it, and we looked beyond the big 5 companies that dominate 80% of the retail in the food business and tried to change our shopping tune and behaviors into the other 20%, then we could probably have a pragmatic difference to how they market and the pricing associated with it. So anyway, if that's your bag and you want to boycott them, you should do exactly what you see fit. Is your money. Here we are in the year of the arts, and I meant to make mention of it off the top of the program, but once again, we've had a very successful time at the East Coast Music Awards. And congratulations to everyone who was nominated, and certainly to all the winners. I'll give you a quick breakdown, because when you win something like this, recognized by your fellow musicians and artists, it's worth a shout out. And again, being in the music or the arts business is not simply a hobby, it's actually a part of the economy as well. So let's give you a breakdown of some of the folks who walked away with awards. And after winning a Juno, the Swinging Bells won Children's Entertainer of the Year. Congratulations to them. The Classical Composer of the Year was Andrew Stanley, Blackwood Sketches. The Classical Recording of the Year, my friend Billy Brennan with Kaleidoscope. So that's music for mallet instruments. The Country Recording of the Year was Jason Benoit. The Time Traveler was the name of the record. Folk Recording of the Year, Tim Baker for the festival. Global Recording of the Year, it was Cuerpos for En Dos Partes. Instrumental Recording of the Year was the Flying Puka, the Ecstasy of Becoming. Solo Recording of the Year, another win from Tim Baker. Tim Baker is a savant. I don't know if you've ever seen Tim perform, and he gets to work with some of the biggest names in the music business because his talent is absolutely off the charts. The TV Fans Choice Award went to, and the Fans Choice Entertainer of the Year went to Dorina Harvey Band. Industry Awards for the Artist Management of the Year, Derek Sturge with Pharaoh's Music Incorporated. The Media Person of the Year, Katie Kelly, shared the award with Zach Snow. Zach worked here with us for quite a while. He's down at VOWR. He's excited to be doing what he's doing. He's so passionate and proud of the work that he produces. So good on you, Zach. I know Zach a little bit, having worked with him here at VOCM. He produced the show on several occasions here, whether it be on Backtalk or Open Line. But congratulations to you, Zach. I saw his Facebook post about it. He's absolutely chuffed. And in the Lifetime Awards or Lifetime Achievement Awards categories, Dennis Parker was given the Dr. Helen Crichton Lifetime Achievement Award, the late Dennis Parker, and the Stompin' Tom Edwards Award, the Stompin' Tom Connors Award went to Pamela Morgan. So congratulations to all hands. We're on the Twitter box. Let's check in there before we run out of time this morning. We're VOCM Open Line. You know what to do. Our email address, Robin would like to know if there's an update on the lawsuit regarding OxyContin as well. Good question. I mean, we do know Purdue Pharmacy has been taken to the cleaners, and rightfully so, even though members of the Sackler family have remained protected. OxyContin is probably even worse than the tobacco-related stories. I mean, we were inundated with visuals of people smoking. You know, Marcus Welby, MD, they were smoking in the doctor's office, smoking in the hospital, we're smoking on the bus, we're smoking on the plane. They were not candid about the issues that they knew were associated with tobacco. It became even worse with OxyContin and Purdue and the Sackler family. They had every understanding in the world that it was as lethal as it was, as addictive as it was, and they didn't tell anybody. They actually had drugs that were being manufactured that could deal with some of the addictive properties of OxyContin. They hoodwinked the doctors that they put these medicines right in the hand of. The way it was overprescribed and double-doctored is truly and utterly disgraceful. So that's a good question, Robin. I would like to know the status of that one as well, in addition to talk about the status of the lawsuits against Big Tobacco. Good one. All right, final check of the morning on the email address. We're openline at VOCM.com. Lots of interesting stuff in there, and lots of people taking exception to the fact that I think that it's important, regardless if you're a Tory, a Liberal, an NDPer, a Green Party supporter, Marijuana Party, Rhinoceros Party, doing all we can to understand the electoral process to ensure that the integrity remains, because our faith and trust in the democratic institutions kind of separates us from some of the yet to be fully developed nations. All right, good show today. Big thanks to everyone who supports the program, all of the callers, listeners, emailers, and tweeters. You're all right. We will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, Fonz King, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.
Hello, it is Ryan, and I was on a flight the other day playing one of my favorite social spin slot games on ChumbaCasino.com. I looked over at the person sitting next to me, and you know what they were doing? They were also playing Chumba Casino. Coincidence? I think not. Everybody's loving having fun with it. Chumba Casino is home to hundreds of casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere, even at 30,000 feet. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com to claim your free welcome bonus. That's ChumbaCasino.com and live the Chumba life.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.